Hey, good evening. How you doing? How's it going? Just finishing up the dog's dinner. Snoopa, that's a cool name. Yeah, I'm doing okay. Been doing a lot of lives lately. I was on a live today. I don't know if anybody saw it. It was on somebody who was talking about communism, of all things. Hello, how you doing? Good evening. Yeah, I went through quite a roller coaster today. I made a video, it got taken down. Made it again, got taken down again. It's like these damn people, I'll tell you. And then finally I appealed it. I'm doing okay, thank you for asking. Hope you're well. Yeah, it's the switch that's necessary for us to get kind of our country to a better place is it's huge. It's a huge task. Hey, glad to hear you're back. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear you had to switch accounts. Is that because one got banned or because you just wanted to try the new one? Drama Llama, that's a fun name. So I guess you guys remember that you're the same account as Dharma. From Malaysia. Hey, Saray, how are you? I'm hanging in there. The dog's not, though. The dog wants his food, so give me a sec. Excuse me, her food. All right, 1 second. There you go, dog. This dog eats way better than I do. Okay, enough of that silliness. Thank you, appreciate it. What's up, everybody? Good evening, or good afternoon, or wherever you may be in the world. Now, I never know because people tune in from everywhere. I've had some people say that it's like 4 in the morning where they are, and they still, I don't know about you, I've never stayed up till 4 in the morning to watch anybody's live, so I think that's nuts. Hi, Nadia, how are you? Good to see everybody. Sometimes it's really weird. The comments don't scroll. Normally they'll scroll. There we go. Now it's going. Can we talk about Mossad? Sure, we can talk about Mossad. My best friends, of course. I think they're going to reach out and touch me someday. We'll see. As they tend to do to people they don't like. But yeah, we can talk about Mossad. They're different. It's like anything else. The U.S. has its CIA. Mossad is not like a bunch of assassins, although they have those people. It's mostly intelligence gathering. 7 a.m. Wow, in Malaysia. Damn, that's early. Well, good morning to you then, I should say. I've never been to any of the islands, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Ring of Fire. I would love to. It's got to be beautiful. It's got to be absolutely beautiful there. I would imagine it's pretty warm year-round, right? I've never looked up the temperature. Oh my goodness. Somebody says they've lost 30 people of their family in Gaza. I'm so sorry to hear that, Saba. Damn. That's unthinkable. But yeah, believe it or not, every time we hear those statistics, these are real human beings, right, with real family members. That's horrible. 1:05 a.m. in Cape Town, South Africa. That's another place I'd love to visit, is South Africa. Well, no, we'll talk about that. So we know that something passed at the UN relating to a ceasefire. It's more of a suggestion than it is a demand. Unfortunately, it's non-binding. That's the dog's ball. Scotland, hey from Scotland. Yeah, it's non-binding. So what did the Israelis do? The moment it was sort of agreed upon, they went out and started attacking again. And again, like we always say, why do they do this? Because they can. Because they act with impunity. And I really hope tonight, more than any other night, I want to get somebody who's pro-Israel up on the panel, because I saw some things today that were just absolutely horrendous. That were just, the amount of civilians being purposely murdered is just getting to be innumerable. And not just with the bombings. I'm talking about just people walking down the street or walking on the beach. Obviously, they're men, but they're not armed, and one would presume they're not military age. They're not. If I was a militant and I had to go somewhere, I would do it underground. I wouldn't do it above ground. So anyway, yeah, somebody says, what's the point of the UN? Well, the point of the UN is to affect other nations other than the powerful, because the institution was basically created and backed by the powerful. So the rules at the UN apply to everybody but the powerful. Somebody says, I'm in Chicago. Irfan says, I'm in Chicago, and I've had so many passive-aggressive comments. What's an example of one that you've heard that's passive-aggressive? I'm curious to hear what that is. In public parks and inside of vehicles, yeah, rideshare, like Uber. There's real Islamophobia out there. There was a video that I just saw today of a man, I think it was in Toronto, who had one of those, those construction guns that shoot the nails instead of having to hammer the nails like a nail gun. And he was pointing this at Palestinian protesters and screaming at them and getting in their face, like pointing it literally like within an inch of their head. And then the guy got arrested, of course, as he should have. But a lot of angry people. A lot of people angry over this conflict. And, I understand it. Emotions run high on this type of issue. People who believe in the Israeli side of it believe that strongly. You can try to claim they're wrong, but that's how they feel, right? I didn't see that part of the video. Somebody says after they beat the guy. I didn't see that part about it. I saw the guy with no longer having his nail gun was kind of, sizing up, but I didn't see a skirmish. Yeah, I know. Jellybean says the U.S. has been infiltrated by a foreign entity since the 60s. That's the scariest part. I 100% agree. I think it was before then. But it's really ramped up since probably the mid 80s to early 90s. It's just gotten out of control. And the problem is we can't even talk about it because you're slammed as being some sort of horrible human being if you just talk about what's actually happened. So there are people who talk about it. They do it on Rumble and they do it on Telegram and they do it on Discord. But here on TikTok, we can't go too deep into that subject about infiltration. Yep. Operation Paperclip. Exactly. Somebody says, I do not look at petro/gas the same way. You must be from the UK because nobody here calls it petro. They call it gasoline. The same way. Too much suffering comes from oil. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about energy. That's a subject that I've spent a lot of time learning about. It's really, once you learn the ins and outs of the energy game, a lot of things become crystal clear as far as what's going on around the world, but especially about industrial society. There's this conversation we have that if we were just to build enough renewables quickly enough, and I am all for, hey, go on your bed, get on your bed. Anybody who has a carrying bone in their body should want to have more renewables, right? Why would you want to have energy that causes environmental harm? But herein lies the problem. Most of industrial society depends inordinately on fossil fuel, natural gas, oil, coal, and a lot of the applications just can't be supplanted with electricity. So you can only electrify so much, but if you did electrify as much as people want people to do, the existing grids, especially in the United States, the legacy grids, don't have the capacity to handle even a fraction of what the anticipated or proposed increased electrification can handle. They just can't do it. They can't do it. Somebody said, Chip, did you see the interview with the SA victim from October 7th? I've only seen one interview with somebody who was released as are you talking about somebody who was were they a hostage or not a hostage? The answer is I haven't seen any new interviews that have been released. If you have a link to something you'd like me to look at, again, I'm always somebody who's willing to look at everything, good, bad, or ugly, and speak for it for what it is. I can't say the same for my friends on the other side. I had somebody who I was engaging with, and I mentioned one video, and I said, just watch the first 5 minutes. It's a 40-minute video, but I said, just watch the first 5. She sent me like 11 or 12 videos, and I watched every single one, responded to each one in some way or the other, and she's just not willing to do anything. So, I mean, I'm willing to take a look, but I just want a little bit of balance in the interchange because it's fair for people to exchange information, not to have it be all one-sided. So yeah, Mina Meets, I'm happy to look at whatever you want to share. If you want to email me something like a link or like a description of where it is, my email address is in my bio. It's just chipbarnesonline@gmail.com. But no, I've not seen any new. If it's a new video, I haven't seen it. Somebody says there's an interview with somebody. And here's the challenge. I don't want to be somebody who's dismissive of people's claims, because obviously that's insensitive, especially if I think we should always listen to and believe what women have to say about these circumstances. The challenge that I run into is, I've seen, like I said, I mention this all the time, and I don't know what this particular interview is, but it's unusual that a lot of people either say one thing and later say another, switch their story, or wait a long time, or seems like somebody's been coached or paid or both to do certain things. That's unfortunately been part of the observation that I've made. And then there are articles that have been run in the New York Times and elsewhere that turn out to be fake. So it's hard. This is why it's hard to look at things with an open mind sometimes, because you see patterns of misinformation and lying, and that makes it harder. But yeah, I'll happily look at anything you want to share. Hi, Sheila. How you doing? Yeah, I think unfortunately, and this is just the way it is, because unfortunately, the Israelis have had a very proactive information management approach for a long time, but especially now that I think they realize that the information battleground of just public perception is being lost in a big way. They're really, really, really starting to make some serious efforts to spend some real money now and get people to come up and just try to advocate for their side and balance things out. I think of the searches being done on places like TikTok, the ones like Free Palestine are like 80 or 85%, or maybe even 90%, versus like I Stand with Israel, for example, or something like that. It's just it's out of balance as far as what people on the Israeli side would like to see, and so I think they're starting to really spend a ton of money on it. Somebody says, like Stormy Daniels. I'm not sure what that has to do with anything. Stormy Daniels is that woman who got paid off by Trump for their little whatever tryst. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but okay. Boyd Anderson 455. Somebody says, TQ for your research on both sides for the past 35 years. I haven't done detailed research the whole 35 years, but I've kept an eye on the conflict, and I've spent different times in my life doing digging, more so than probably anybody who usually does this kind of stuff, who's not an academic. But I don't claim to be an expert. I claim to be someone who's well aware, but there's lots of little details that other experts know that I don't know, obviously. I've never. Somebody says, Lorensky says, what do I think of the bridge collapse? I think it's terrible that happened. For those of you who don't know, in the Baltimore Patapsco River, which is in South Baltimore, a bridge called the Francis Scott Key Bridge that's been around since like the late 70s. A barge, like a container ship, lost power, and it rammed into one of the major support columns of the bridge, and it collapsed. And luckily there was no vehicular traffic. They were able to warn, because the operator of the barge must have had like a radio, and they were able to warn people at shore. But unfortunately there were, I think, 8 transportation workers that were working on fixing some of the road, like potholes, whatever. And 2 of them were rescued, but the other 6, of course, they didn't rescue. So, of course, with the water temperature and the amount of time that's passed, they're looking for their bodies now. So 6 people died. They were mostly from Central America, and they were here working hard as people do. And wrong place, wrong time. It's really sad. It's horrible. But yeah, some people have surmised that the timing of this, along with what happened in the Russia music hall, may have something to do with diversion or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if a major, seafaring accident like that would be necessary. There'd be a much easier ways to divert tactics, But that's just my guess. Somebody says, John says, Mossad and the CIA are running blackmail factories for control of politicians and hiring. Yeah, listen, that's not a unique thing to Mossad and the CIA. That's been going on forever. A lot of times they catch people in compromising positions with regard to, affairs or other types of bizarre people's behavior, going to something. Somebody says Diddy is related to Mossad, guaranteed. I don't know about that. I don't have any evidence to back that up. Maybe he's been compromised because of the different situations in which he's gone because of his particular proclivity for certain bizarre behavior. That's where a lot of people get in trouble. They sort of pursue their most dirty, dark things, and then somebody gets them on tape or whatever. Have I noticed the similarities between Diddy and Epstein? I'm not really sure. again, I think that Epstein, if I have it right, was somebody who was used as like a trap to trap other people. That's what it seems like from a distance. Like he would have this whole routine that he and Ghislaine Maxwell would go through to wow people to certain things and act like it was all kind of normal. And then, of course, everything's, recorded. So I don't know. These are hard things to figure out. I mean, you can look at the puzzle pieces and try to piece them together, but you never know for sure. Some things are just coincidental. It's got to be sometimes. But somebody says they run Universal. Wasn't Universal Music the one that had the fallout with TikTok, where a lot of the music that was on here was no longer allowed? UMG, Universal Music Group, I think it was called. Yeah. That was a big upheaval because a lot of people had a lot of older videos. And supposedly, if you have a video that's using one of their copyrighted pieces of music, TikTok has to take it down. So people who were using their music constantly for free or whatever the agreement was could have had most or all their videos taken down if TikTok is going to comply with the termination of the contract or get sued. Here, dog. Here, let me give the dog a can of food. Just a sec. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come on. There you go. So we have a good bit of people. Do me a favor really quickly before we start talking about the first subject of the day, which is going to be something to do with Russia. Let's invite some other folks in. I'm going to do it myself while you do it. The way to do it is to hold the screen down for like a half a second, and then you can invite people who you know. I'm going to do the same thing. So please do that. Oh, hey, Keisha's here. Cool. Hope Keisha comes up and shares some of her views. She's always interesting to hear from. Here we go. There I went to. So I'm just going to invite some folks. Oh, good. There's Onita. I hope she comes up. She's probably asleep, though. I think she lives overseas. All right. Oh, boy. There's this person named Moroccan. Have you ever dealt with Moroccan Zionist? Wow. That person's a trip. Did anybody catch the live last night where we had some folks that were in who spoke Mandarin Chinese? And at one point, I think 3 people came on, 2 of which spoke some English. One spoke pretty good English. And they were trying to translate. And there was an argument going on about me trying to defend Palestinians or him saying it. No. It was very strange. Hold on a second. When I invite people to the live, unfortunately, it brings them up as guests. I'm not quite to the point where I'm doing guests yet, but please hang tight. If you want to come up as a guest, I'd love to have you. I don't even remember who that was. Did I hear the phone call that was recorded between the ADL guy for major? No, I didn't hear that. Is that something that's new? That's somebody named I Am Not Mark who responded to Saad Khan. No, there are a couple of things. So I have not seen the video or the testimony video from supposedly an SA survivor from the 7th. So hopefully somebody can show me where that is. And then, no, I haven't seen this other video that is a recording of. Am I going to allow them tonight? I'm not going to allow the guys that were doing the Mandarin translation. That's just, and it's not so much them. It's just that the translating process is a little arduous, and it's a little too much. They're anybody's more than welcome to come into the live and talk. But if somebody's not a native English speaker, we can do like a couple sentences back and forth. I just don't want to do a lengthy period of that. I think it's annoying for everybody. It's unfortunate. I wish I spoke some Mandarin. I'd love to speak with them and to translate for the audience. That'd be great. But unfortunately, that's not the deal. So what I'm really trying to do, just to let the audience know before we start talking about Russia, but if you're somebody who is pro-Israel or you disagree with me about some issue, it doesn't have to be that, and you want to come up and discuss it. I mean, I've had so many people in the comments say things like, man, you need to wake up, or it's so sad you don't know what you're talking about, or you're dreaming, or, all these other things that are sort of general. But then when I ask somebody to come up or I ask them to be specific, it's just crickets, And some people can't come up because they don't have, I think it's the 100 or 200 followers you have to have. That's fair enough. But for those, if you have followers and you have a point to make, come on up and make it. Or at least in the comments, clarify. But it says, those Falun Gong wanted to disrupt your lives yesterday. I don't know what they were. Maybe it was purposeful. I don't know. One of the guys, his name is Duck something or other, and he seemed okay. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for keeping about Palestine. This is the thing, and this is the part that I think people don't understand. I don't know anybody who's from Palestine. I don't know anybody who's from Israel. In fact, the only friends I've never had any Palestinian friends. I haven't had many friends. I don't even think I've had any friends that have been of Arab or who practice Islam, just because of my life circumstances, not because I have anything else. And the only friends I do have are Jewish from where I live, because there's a big Jewish community here. But as I like to say, in fairness, just in fairness to those who know, my taking side is based on the dynamics. So as I've said many times, if the dynamics were shifted and it was an Arab country that was doing terrible things to displaced, Jewish refugees, and all the same things that happened, I would be defending the right of defense for people who are Jewish, and I would be talking, disparagingly against the country that if it was an Arab nation doing this to Jewish people. So I think that's fair. And how can that possibly be translated into hatred for one group or the other? It doesn't matter to me who's it's about what they're doing. So anyway, somebody says it's disappearing from my For You page, so it's important that you continue. Yeah, a lot of my stuff is not making it to people's For You pages, unfortunately. And for those who don't know, when you first come to your homepage, you start scrolling through videos, that's your For You page. And then there's one that's people who you're following. You can switch over between the two. So what they do to a lot of content creators whose content is questionable, whatever, is they just stop circulating it on the algorithm and only your followers can see it. And sometimes they don't even do that. So people have to literally go to your page and just look at your videos. That happens with my lives a lot, unfortunately. My average attendance used to be 300, 400, 500 by the time we got to this point, 20 minutes in. That's all changed. No big deal. It is what it is. They're going to do what they're going to do. But I made a video today, uploaded it. After about 20 minutes, it had 0 views. I'm like, that seems weird. And so I looked at it, and it had a violation for some kind of community guidelines. It was not going to be circulated. So I remade it, tried to chop out stuff that I thought might have been objectionable, loaded it, same problem. And then it got taken down. The one I fixed got taken down, so to speak. So then I had to appeal that, and then that appeal got approved, and now the video is up, and who knows what's happening. But I'm actually going to play it before we talk about this Russia thing, because it has to do with that. So anyway, hey, what's up, Addie? Yeah, by the way, if anybody ever sees somebody making a comment in the quotes that you think might be mean-spirited, but you're not totally sure, let's give people the benefit of the doubt and ask them before we either kick them out or mute them or whatever. If you're somebody who's a mod, rarely do people say horrible things. And if they spell something wrong and it seems like they're saying something bad, let's give them a chance to clarify. I think that's fair. I don't like to kick people out, especially people who don't like what I have to say. They're the last people I want to kick out, as long as you're not being a jackass. Now, I will say this before I bring up guests, and we'll talk about the Russia thing real quick. There are certain people, and I don't mean to call him out for this reason, just as an example. There's someone named Dapper who tends to come onto lives. And listen, Dapper, I respect anybody who has a strong point of view. That's great. But then what Dapper will do is he'll go into his side of things, and then he'll start laying out personal attacks, calling people like me and others who say the things that we're all anti-Semitic. It always comes back to that smear. And I've never called people like Dapper a Jewish supremacist. And he may be, I don't know, and maybe I could relate what he says to that, but I would never say that because it doesn't really help the debate. And likewise, just because somebody disagrees with your point of view doesn't make them anti-Jewish, for God's sakes. In fact, in most cases, people don't even give a damn that you're Jewish. Who gives a shit? There have been people that on the H group side that have said this: hey, if my cousin, who's the most devout Muslim and Arab that ever lived, came in and took my family's house and mistreated me for 3 decades, I'd be fighting my cousin, who's an Arab and Muslim, right? So if you mistreat somebody and marginalize them, take their stuff, exploit them, and then be shocked when they dare to fight back, and then you crush them even further, what do you expect to happen? And then to turn around and try to disparage those who just simply point out these dynamics as being against Jewish people. Come on, give me a break. That's a deflection tactic that's just lost all of its power. And the sad part is there are people who are against Jewish people, and that term should be reserved for those people who literally say hateful things toward Jewish people or blame Jewish people for everything. And they're just, that abject hatred should be called out. But the term is just thrown everywhere now, so it lost its meaning. So anyway, somebody says, I love you, but was muted a few days ago because I said something against Zionism. I was horrified. Is that Nikki? Nikki, there are other people that come into my lives and do moderation. I almost never ever mute somebody unless they're saying some really horrible stuff. So I don't know if you got accidentally muted by somebody. I don't believe I did it. But no, feel free to come in here and share your views. And, I don't know which side of the issue you're on, but if you're on the side against me, hey, that's great. Share your point of view. But I don't understand why that happened. So please don't take offense to it. Try to be fair. Do I have a job? I haven't had a job. Somebody asked if I have a job. I haven't had a formal job like you go in and check in with the boss for, geez, maybe 30 years. I've been self-employed forever. So no, I don't do well in jobs. I'm usually the person who creates the jobs. Yeah, it probably was a miscommunication. Very rarely does something like that happen. Okay, let me do this. Swarsha's here. I'm going to let Swarsha come up and talk for a sec, and then I'm going to go get the video up that talks about this Russia stuff. But since Swarsha's waiting, let's see what's on Swarsha's mind. What's up?
What's up, brother Chip? How are you?
How are you?
Can you hear me, Chip?
Yes.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good, thanks. Sheesh, where to begin? I wanted to give our listeners kind of the heads up on how to find information that is falling outside of mainstream hands. And it's important because Google, Microsoft, they're very good at having us on rails and rails of information that they want us to know about. So in other words, if you look up something on Google, you might see, false or conspiracy or this, they'll just laden something that is true, but they'll just blanket it in all kinds of conspiracy articles that may not be from Google, but they're still going to rank them high to make sure that you understand that the information is false. And so there are other ways to get to sensitive information that is not mainstream, and I'm going to give them to you. So what I've been using, and I've been spending 10 years on who the evil is behind this planet. And a lot of it has to do with an internal problem that I had when I was younger, bullying and the whole thing. But there are ways to this information that they don't want you to get to, and here it is. Instead of Google, use Yandex. Yandex is an open platform that kind of presents all the information, and they want to take market share from Google. So they're going to give you as much as they possibly can to make sure you're satisfied. There's no agenda. It doesn't seem so. But, again, up for speculation, and don't believe everything I say. Look at the Babylonian Talmud. This is the blueprint that a lot of our directors of the military, especially in Israel, are looking at as far as the rabbis go, because the Babylonian Talmud is in every synagogue, in every temple kind of a thing across America. So look at the Babylonian Talmud if you want to see what the blueprint is in Israel. And finally, look at uncensored AI. The way to get to uncensored AI is you have to download a program called the LM Studio. And once you download that program that runs as a standalone on your desktop, you're able to download the Wizard Vicuna uncensored AI, and you can
spell that? The Wizard what?
It's called the Wizard Vicuna, Vicuna.
Okay.
The first program that you're going to need, though, it's just a program to be able to download AI, right? It's called the LM Studio.
Right.
And that'll allow you to download whatever AI you want. Just so you know, ChatGPT is owned by Microsoft.
It's all censored. It's terrible.
That's right. It's all censored. It's horrible. So we really want to find information that's not touched by these guys yet. So that is one way. So I don't want to, monologue Chip, and, because I know a lot of stuff that is just so disturbing, but a lot of it would be labeled as conspiracy because not a lot of us have either the time to do the research on this stuff because we have families or we're at work all the time. You know what I'm saying? So I don't have a family and I own my own company. So I have the time to dedicate to finding out who's responsible for all this stuff. So that's what I would say. I love you all.
Real quick, before you go, Swarsha, in terms of this Babylonian Talmud, can you give people a quick, maybe 1,000-foot view of what's its feel or flavor that may be different from the Torah, for example?
Oh my, I absolutely can. I had it right in front of me before we started this conversation because it is so overwhelmingly evil.
What about it would you say is evil? Just give you kind of an executive point of view, and then you can go to some of the details.
What about it is evil? My goodness, it has a thirst. Um, it has a it has a connotation that everyone outside of Judaism is an animal. That's the central. It's crazy that I know it sounds crazy what I'm saying, but that is the central theme: is that everyone else is an animal. We have rights that they don't, and um, we can do things that they can't. Why? Because we're the chosen. I don't know if I answered that correctly, Chip. I know you're very sensitive on being articulate, so I don't know if that answers your question or not.
But when you said the word "we," I'm assuming you mean people that are Jewish versus non-Jewish. That they being the non-Jewish people, we can do things Jewish that they non-Jewish can't do. Is that
That's
the idea?
correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
I just want
Yep.
to make sure that was clear. Okay.
I can read if you wish. I can read. I have it right here. I can read some of the more G-rated stuff. Um, I can let me just do I'll do two of them. I'll pick two out of 10 of them that I have in front of me. Yabamoth, the Yabamoth 98A says all non-U instead of U, it's a J right in front of that. So all non-U children are animals. These are the children. These are our children, right? This is Yabamoth 98A. The Sanhedrin 57A. When a U murders unalives a non-U, there will be no unaliving penalty. There's two out of 10, but they get worse. They get much worse. I mean, this thing is, and can you believe that this book is in all the synagogues? This book is being studied by the rabbis.
There's somebody in the comments that says, her name is Wrote Judah or Jude. The comment was bunch of crazy conspirologs. Do you think that what you're saying is conspiratorial, or why would one think that versus that?
Because that person doesn't know that this book, the Babylonian Talmud, is in every synagogue across America. And I challenge them to come up and have a conversation with me because we already know that it is. And so please, I want to see what you would say to me. Whoever that was, Chip, I want to see what the response is.
They only have 9 followers, but I'm sure that they would probably want to come up if they could. So when you say it's in all the synagogues around the world, is it just the United States or around the world?
I know that it was confirmed to me that it is in all the synagogues in the United States. As far as the world, Chip, I honestly don't have that information. I don't have the confirmation enough I don't want to say anything that's false, but I do want to say things that are true only.
Do you think that people, is it a widespread belief system, or is it some of just the more radical members of different synagogues would look at, kind of like, in other words, people say there's radical Islamic views and then there's mainstream Islam. And is it similar in that only the most radical people who believe that are followers of this, or is this more widespread?
See, that's what I thought until I heard that it was in every synagogue. I thought it was only for the radical, the Ashkenazi Zionist element. That's what I thought, because there's no way that they would be teaching this in any type of formal setting. But then I'm scratching my head because I know because I was given the information that it's in every synagogue, and now I'm saying, well, wait a second, like what are they actually passing down orally to the children of Israel? And why are they looking at the Palestinians as such animals? Okay, well now I'm starting to see a pattern of cross correlation here in the data. So that's why this is alarming to me. And it wouldn't be alarming if I didn't find it being in every synagogue. That's what the problem is. It's not that this book exists. I'm cool with that. But the problem is that the rabbis are using this as a blueprint within their blueprint.
So as a devil's advocate, just real quick, as a devil's advocate, so we've all heard, hold on just a sec, we've all heard the accusations that part of the problem is that Palestinians, especially young people, are taught from a very young age to be militant, to hate Jewish people, and eventually hope take up arms against who they perceive to be the enemy. What would you say to those who say that you're brainwashed by making this calculation that they're the problem, the others are the problem, not this particular group that look at this particular book?
There's, you know what, I would actually say to you that also exists, and I'm not blind at all to say that doesn't exist. I can see that exists. I know it exists. There is language in the Quran that is very, very damning against the Israelis. So, well, not the Israelis, but the Jewish people, Judaism, right? But there's no but. That language exists. They do. Some harbor those views. I mean, full transparency, full disclosure. That's the case.
Do you think that this is another point of contention that I've tried to get my head on because I have my own thoughts, but I want to hear yours. In terms of the primary motivator for the formation of a militant group, for example, like the H group, and what motivated their behavior with the attack, either by rockets in the past or by the current attack on October 7th, what motivated those things? Is it born simply out of hate, as you mentioned, as part that's in the Quran, or is it might be something else as well?
I honestly think that operation was an inside operation. I think that they used that as an excuse to go in and cause chaos and sacrifices. I think that they are on the inside of 9/11. I think that they are on the inside of October 7th. I think they're on the inside of the Nord Stream pipeline. I think they're on the inside. And my list is extensive. I could keep going. This is a false flag escalation to accelerate prophecy in my limited scope. Chip, I'm one human, but this is what it looks like with the sacrifice of the red heifers, with the building of the third temple, with even Trump being on the coin behind the third temple, and I'm not even on a red or blue team, but this whole thing looks suspect. And the reason why it looks suspect is because there was a 6-hour delay when the invasion started, and you have the world's most guarded, looked after border on the planet, and you're telling me that they needed a 6-hour delay? I don't believe it. I simply just won't accept that. I'll accept a 45-minute delay max. And you're talking about very sensitive surveillance systems that are very, very high resolution and capable. So absolutely never will I accept a 6-hour delay, nor will I accept even no response while they were able to carry out whatever they were doing for how many hours. So, and take hostages. Come on, no, absolutely never.
Okay, just to back up to a different point, I certainly can understand how you come across on that one. What about, okay, forget about what happened on the 7th for a second. What do you think motivates in any territory or any circumstance the formation of a group? Is it based on, do you think the formation of the H group or other militancy was based exclusively on hate, as you said, it exists inside the Quran towards Jewish people? Or do you think it may have been some other motivating factor for the formation of a group like that?
No, I actually that is the it's not only the oral tradition that's passed down of hatred, but it's also in the books like the Quran and the Hadiths. They have extensive history of being at war together. As you know, Chip, you're very your perspective on history is very thorough, and so from my perspective, it's limited, but I would say that there is a significant amount of history to write up a good story on why we should not like these other people. And so put that in the books, sure, why not? We were persecuted by the Romans, this and that. Now we have all these skirmishes and problems with the Judean people, so let's include that in the hadiths. So I think it's scripted in.
So you believe that it's religious and from a standpoint of hatred based on religious tradition. Do you think, to kind of juxtapose that from what others say, there may be some of that among some of the participants who are more the radical, who derive their motivation from what you just mentioned. Are there some that you believe get their motivation from resistance to the circumstances, or that plays no role?
No, I think it plays a big role. I think if you were to starve out my family for a good half year, I'm doing something about it. And I think a lot of these people, I would say 50%, because I honestly don't know the figure, have serious motivations behind the injustice that's going on. I mean, the world now is completely awake to the overwhelming response where Israel has mounted a full scale, full frontal attack on an enemy that barely has weapons. And so this whole thing looks so lopsided, so skewed, that you would have to have an element, significant amount of people, at least 50%, saying this is justified. We need to, coalesce and put a team together, the H group, and take care of business. So I can't rule that out. I think that's also on the table.
Portia, somebody in the comments said that he compared what you're saying to anybody who doesn't know. There was a member of the Mustache Man crew named Himmler. This person has said that he thinks that your conversation is Himmler propaganda. Do you have any sort of hatred in your heart towards any groups of people, or what's the reason for your bringing this up?
I have absolutely no hatred for any group of people. In fact, I love both both sides. I love the Jewish people and the Palestinian people very, very much. Um, my motivation has nothing to do with bashing either side. My motivation is to try to find a solution for peace, for humanity. And if it has to do with calling out both sides, I'm going to do that. I don't have any type of allegiance. My allegiance is the continuity of humanity. And so if we don't wake up to this, to what's going on, darkness will win. And the only way to fight darkness is with light. And what I mean by that is exposure. Light is exposure. It's awareness. That's what we need, in my book, to solve any problem. Light disinfects everything. So that's my motivation. I hope I answered that.
And if people wanted, yeah, thank you. If people wanted to find out more of the things that you've looked into to try to make the comments you're sharing, what would you recommend to them rather than them sort of just hearing this and going, well, hey, that's just one person's, their summary. What would you suggest?
I would suggest, wow, that's a good question. I would suggest looking at the Babylonian Talmud to gather information about what their motivations are. That's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for motivation and intent. That's exactly what we're looking at. And then I would look at a book, at a PDF I was just reading last night. It's incredible. It's called it's by John Coleman. It's called The Conspirators' Hierarchy, the story of the Committee of 300. It basically outlines the Committee of 300, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of what this committee is. Basically, it's 300 people, a council of behind the Council of Foreign Relations and the Bilderbergers, the Trilaterals, that kind of a thing, Freemasons. They're all in this. But this guy went boots on the ground to get this information. He's very detail oriented on how he gathered this info. It's not like one of those PDFs where you're going to read like, oh, we believe that there's, this NWO out there and, it's some conspiracy of guys in suits in England or in Europe. No, that's not what this is. This is a full scale, boots on the ground, witnesses after witnesses of what's going on. And so that's what I would look at this document. Wow, there's a lot of other documents. I've just been buried in these documents. But there's some other ones that are very important. They're not coming to mind, but I have them. I have them in my mind, but
Just want to
I
share
can't.
this with the audience. So somebody in the comments said that you made a comment suspecting you hadn't done much research into the actual Talmud. So I just want to share this with the audience because I don't know much about it either. It says, so here's the question I typed in. I typed in overview of the Talmud, Talmud, into Google. And like the second or third link said this, says, what are the beliefs of the Talmud? It says, unlike the Romans who considered ritual law God-given and social law man-made, the rabbis believed all Jewish law to be of divine origin. Thus, for example, unfairness in labor relations was considered a religious sin and caring for the sick a religious obligation. So those don't sound very controversial. What is it about the Talmud that you think is controversial?
The Talmud is very in depth. It's the Babylonian Talmud is a culmination of the oral teachings of the scribes and Pharisees that Christ so adamantly rebuked. It is a long collection of books that weren't put into written form until around the 6th century A.D. It is composed of the Mishnah and the Gemara
Right.
of rabbis over the ages. I want to give some more information on exactly what this book is, but
Where's the best place for somebody to get, like, even for myself, to get a summary that includes some of the things that you find concerning?
I would go to, I have the link. If you DM me, Chip, I can send you a link, but you can really get this. I don't need to send you this. You can look up the Babylonian Talmud on Yandex and pretty much pick a link. There's no skewing of the data here. It's basically the book says what it says, and that's it. The central theme around the book is sin to win, it says. That's what my link says. Obviously, it's not going to say that in the Talmud, but that's what the title of the article I'm reading is sinning to win. Basically, they're trying to push us in so much chaos and sin that it's almost like a polarity equation where we reverse or go into like a state of predation or war where we destroy each other, and then out of that come the rulers of the world, and they have their 2,800 slaves. The 2,800 slaves is in the Talmud. So when they win this thing at the end of the prophecy, they get 2,800 slaves per Jewish person.
All right, so there are a couple things here. I don't know where this comes from. I've not verified the validity of this. I'm going to read a few off. I want to say this very clearly, though, that I have not spent time to, sort of verify any of this, but this is the first thing I came across when I typed that in through, I'm on a website called the Serapeum or the Serapeum or something. Okay, so here we go. They give the name, I think, of the references to portions of the Talmud, I'm guessing. So it says Yabamoth 98a, all non-Jews children are animals. Sanhedrin 57a, when a Jew murders a non-Jew, there will be no death penalty. Kethubath 11b, a man who engaged in intercourse with a girl less than 3 years old has done nothing. That sounds alarming. Shabbath 116a, Jews must destroy books of Christians, in other words, the New Testament. Baba Mazia 114. I'm reading these. I have not read these before. I'm just reading them as I see them. The non-Jews are not human. They are beasts. Gittin 57a, Jesus is in hell being boiled in hot excrement. Boy, that sounds awkward. Baba, 113a, Jews may use lies, subterfuges to circumvent the non-Jews. These are just things I'm finding. I have no idea if this is in there or not. I'm just saying this is what someone else is saying is in there. If people want to see, if you look for yourself, if you go to a site called, what is it called again? What's the search engine called?
Yandex.
Yandex. Yandex is an alternative search engine to Google or Bing or whatever. And there are probably going to be some documents and links that are found there that won't be found through, what is usually some sort of sanitized search stuff. But what I did was, let me go back to the beginning. I typed in the search bar, Babylonian Talmud. And the second link that came up, it says Babylon's most unholy book, Antichrist Talmud, Sin to Win. You mentioned Sin to Win. That's the only reason why I chose that link, because that was in there. Anyway, that's the one that I clicked on if you want to check for yourself. Those of you who want to dispute it, those of you who want to confirm it, those of you who don't care. But that's where I look for those things that I just talked about, if you're curious. Again, I've not done any, I want to do a disclaimer. I've not done any independent research to verify or deny what we just heard, to be fair.
I'm not, and I want to put a disclaimer on the table. I'm not a rabbi. And I, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm also looking at this stuff and doing an examination. And I don't have my doctorate in this stuff. So don't listen to what I'm saying. Do the research, find out what's in the Talmud yourself, and you might find things that are alarming.
There's somebody in the comments, and again, I try to be fair. So there's somebody named again, wrote Judah or read you as somebody says that stands for. He says you cannot independent research. I guess that means you say you cannot do research independently. So I tell you, wrote you. I don't want to do anything that's not in keeping with the right steps. If you would like to send me to a source that you think is more accurate or in keeping with, I got to turn that back source just a sec. If you want to send me to a source that you think is more appropriate than the one that I just went to or others, you can contact me on my email. It's just chipbarnesonline@gmail.com. I don't know how else to be more fair than that, except for if you disagree with whatever I'm going through, tell me where else to go and I'll go there, okay? You have my word. And then if I find things that contradict the things that we just went over, I'll happily tell the audience. I think that's fair. Okay, there's some other folks on the panel, Swash. You're welcome to stay. I just want to give a few folks the chance to chirp in. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, hang tight. Thanks for sharing your views. Again, whatever Swarsha shared tonight, I don't have independent verification for any of what he shared. I let him speak. Everyone gets a chance to speak their piece. I don't know all the facts, so I have to get into that. Okay, the next person that was going to come in was Forensic Nurse, and then we have Palestinian and Federico.
Hey, Chip. It's a pleasure as always.
Hello.
Absolutely love your content. I try to tune in at least once or twice a day.
Okay, cool.
And, there's some interesting, if anybody's interested, Wikipedia has been updating terms about AIPAC if you're interested. So if you go into talk, after you go into Wikipedia and you wiki AIPAC, go into talk so that you can see what the Wikipedia employees have been adding and deleting. I think it's interesting that there's movement there. And also, if you go down through AIPAC's history and look at controversies, there's also some really good information that you have touched on inside those controversies. And I think it's important.
So can you walk us through the steps again? Because I didn't follow that yet.
Yeah, so if you go to Wikipedia and you type in AIPAC,
okay,
you'll see up at the top of the, when it rolls up the page, you'll see an area where it says talk.
Is that on the left-hand side, the middle, or the right?
I think it's in the middle. There's
it's at the top center, just below the C and the A in AIPAC.
Great.
Okay,
that will let you know what people have been arguing back and forth about. Funnily enough, they've been kind of amending it over the last month, which is a little odd. I think it's because so much traffic is getting brought onto, AIPAC. And also, if you go down through AIPAC history, you can see what the history is. They will let you know people who have held dual citizenship. Controversies is a great one because it lets you know. I was kind of surprised to see some of the things that Bernie Sanders had chimed in. I did not know that Bernie Sanders refused to go to AIPAC events.
When you say controversies, where are you referencing that? Because I'm on the page and I see warning, active arbitration remedies, international relations, Israel organization. Where are you finding controversies?
So if you're on the main Wikipedia where you've typed in AIPAC, just scroll down until you see it. You'll see history. You'll see current candidates.
Okay, so towards the bottom, there's a header that says controversy and criticism, and then it breaks it out in both parts. So
yes, there is some great nuggets for anybody looking to kind of see where some of our mainstream recent politicians, and there's some older stuff in there too, but I think it's important to kind of know where some of our newer folks stand and what they're funding. And it also shows you AIPAC's breakdown of how much money that they are making, how much they are paying out. And also in the controversies are some candidates who have tried to move for AIPAC to be registered as a foreign entity.
Interesting.
But
thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's amazing. You learn things every day. I had no idea that was all on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I didn't either. I just kind of wikied it to see what was in there, and I was shocked at some of the people who had spoken out because, as you well know,
Wow.
Bernie Sanders belongs to the faith. So it was interesting to, like, I can't even say it here on TikTok what he said, but it was stern. We'll just leave it at that.
Somebody here says, I am not Mark. Could I give a quick summary, please? It's a lot of information there. I'm going to have to go through it myself, actually. So I'd have to read it first before giving the group a summary. But Mark, what the instructions were, I'll repeat them for the audience. So the instructions were to go to Wikipedia and in the search box, type in the letters that represent AIPAC. It's AIPAC, American Israel Public Affairs Committee. And then on the main page, if you scroll down towards the bottom, there's a section that says controversies and criticism. And in that section is where she was referring to the Bernie Sanders and other information. And then if you click through at the very top of the page, of the first page that I just referenced, there's two different tabs underneath the word AIPAC. One says article, which is the first page. If you click on the one next to it that says talk, that takes you to the edits and other types of things. You can review those and see how things have been changed by other people and this, that, and the other. So I'd have to go through it. It's a lot to cover, but you're welcome to do that. And if you want to share your views after you see that, I'd love to hear them. Or if anybody else has time during the live to browse that and wants to share, please do. It's going to take me a little time to do that. Sorry, I would love to do that for you. I am not Mark.
Absolutely. And anytime that you see a controversy like what's going on in the Middle East right now, anytime you see one of those controversies and type that into Wikipedia to look it up, remember you can always hit the talk button and it will show you the edits that are coming in. And trust me, what's going on in the Palestinian state right now has a lot of traffic.
So if I click on talk, I'm not Mark asked me to put it on the screen. So here's where you get to. If you go to Wikipedia, you type AIPAC and hit enter. This is what it takes you to. And then, as I said, if you go underneath the word AIPAC, which is right here, there's the article, which is the main page. And then if you click on the one that says talk, it launches this page here. And then you can scroll down and look at different things that people have written and updated, this kind of thing.
And that's where
So
I
again,
keep
I'd
an
have to do some
eye
digging.
on how they're changing, like changing the narrative. Anytime you
Okay.
want to see if the narrative's being changed, go to that talk button on whatever topic you've typed into Wikipedia, and it will tell you
Okay.
verbatim what everybody is writing.
Let's just type in, out of curiosity, I'm going to type in G side and see, I'm going to say in Gaza, just out of curiosity if this is written into Wikipedia or not. Okay, here's what it says here. It says Palestinian genocide accusation. So this is an interesting subject. I might look into this as well. And then you go to the talk tab, and here's where things have been like updated or modified by people, right? Is that what happens?
Yes.
Okay.
And you'll see them
Interesting.
arguing. They argue with one another. Like the employees of Wikipedia or the contributors, you'll actually see them get into arguments over whatever it is that somebody either wrote or took away or whatnot.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, thanks for the information. So, yeah, the searches were G side in Gaza, and the other one was just AIPAC. So you can play around with this a bit, and if people want to share their impressions of other searches, that would be interesting. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Anytime.
Appreciate that. Yeah, interesting. Learn something every day. Thanks for being here. Do you want to stick around or do you want to drop?
Yeah, I'll stick around. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, I believe Palestinian Jew was next. What is on your mind? And welcome.
Hello, welcome. How are you, Chip?
Hi. Good, thanks.
Yeah, listen, you've got one heck of a live. I mean, really, people can really learn a lot from you and from this panel. But I have a question. So, first of all, back to how do you spell your name? Sarosi?
Swarsha.
Swarsha. How you doing, Swarsha?
Good, good. How you doing?
Yeah, so the Babylonian Talmud, from what I know, is definitely in every Orthodox synagogue in the Jewish faith. I don't know that the Reform Judaism or the Conservative Judaism follows the the Babylonian Talmud. I don't know for sure. I'm a secular Jew. I was born and raised in Israel, and I used to be a rabid Zionist, and I completely flipped around and became a rabid anti-Zionist. So, and you said many things that I absolutely 100% agree with. I think that you're comparing that your idea of thinking that Hamas comes out of born out of the teaching of the Quran to go after Jews is not even close to being accurate. I think it's simply a resistance movement it's a slave rebellion is what it is. The Palestinians were slaves, just like, hey, the Torah and the Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud told Jews that all the Goyim are to be the slaves, 2,800 slaves for each Jew, each and every Jew. Those are the slaves that are rebelling. That's what it is. It's a slave rebellion. And Judaism is the most racist religion in the world. I mean, it's in the Torah. It's all black and white. You don't have to have. There's no research to be done. You open the Torah, read what it says. Open the Talmud, read what it says. You'll see. It's. But I have another question for you.
Well, let me jump in real quick before you ask Swarsha, if you don't mind. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
So one of the questions that flies, I may have asked you this before, but just for the audience's edification, obviously I don't want your entire life history. What was it in your evolution that had you at one point being a very pro-Zionist thinker / member of the religion or ethnicity, and then what changed that made it different for you to switch your viewpoint?
You know, it started it actually started very slowly when I was growing up in Israel. I grew up in Haifa, which is kind of a mixed city between Palestinians.
It's in the very north.
Palestinian.
It's in the very
yeah, and I happened to get to know some Palestinian kids my age, and I did not see anything. I liked them. They're all good people, and then when I went into the military, so before I went to the military, I went to a boarding school, and there were two Palestinian students with me at that boarding school, and I stayed in touch with one of them. I became really close to one of them, and when I was drafted to the military, I started corresponding with him. And then I was called by the Israeli Shin Bet, by the military intelligence for interrogation, and with a bright light in my face, like you see in the movies. And they asked me, "What do you have to do with this guy? Why are you in touch with this guy?" I said, "We're just friends from high school. What's a big deal? We're just friends." The next 2 days, they found him dead. He was run off a road. He was driving his car. They ran him off the road and left him to die. And I always suspected that it was the works of the IDF, the works of the Israeli intelligence. And then I left Israel after I served in the military, and I came to the U.S. and I went to college. And I met some Palestinian people, and I never met a Palestinian I didn't like. And I started opening my mind. I had a lot of Israeli friends then, and they're all still rabid Zionists. But slowly I evolved into really being disillusioned with Zionism and knowing that it's all fake and bullshit and racist and garbage. And I became an anti-Zionist. And I surrendered my Israeli citizenship. I renounced it. I'm done. So, okay. So I want to back to you. Do you think? And now I may sound like a freaking anti-Semite too.
I'm fine. You sound.
In fact, I don't give a damn if I do anymore. To be
No,
honest
you
with
sound
I
fine.
think. Okay. But do you mentioned something about the Cabal and the Cabal and the foreign relations, the Council for Foreign Relations, and the 300 men that's behind them.
Yeah.
Do you think that those are the elders of Zion?
Yes.
AKA yes, there you go. So the protocols of the elders of Zion is a true and correct document.
Yes.
Is it right? Okay,
It
there
is.
you go. Listen, Chip, this is should shatter the world, this thing.
It
Because
will.
here we got a guy that can back it up, and the protocols of the elders of Zion is not a fabrication,
Nope.
like most Zionists will tell you. It's a
Yes.
true and real agenda of the Zionist Judaism. That's what it
100%.
is. There you
100%.
go. So let
It
me
is
ask you,
stamped.
Suarez.
I have a copy that is stamped from the FBI office. It is a stamped, sealed. It is confirmed over and over document that has legitimacy behind it. You're absolutely correct, my brother. You are
My
100%.
brother, you are my brother. Tell me, do you happen to be Jewish by any chance, or what's your
I'm not.
background?
No, but you know what? I'm a human.
You're human, and are you in America?
I am, but I'm actually
Uh-huh.
I'm not a proud American. I love my people. I love my
Hmm.
American people more than anything besides God. But like I'm from Colorado, but I'm right now in Colombia, the country.
Uh-huh.
So
I see.
yeah.
Guys,
And
couple real
I'm
quick,
from
guys, real
Israel,
quick.
and
Hold
I
on,
Say
real
love.
again,
quick.
Chip. Sorry.
I'm sorry to do this, guys. I don't want to interrupt your conversation. I just wanted for the audience to provide perspective. You all both said that it was certainly the truth. So I want to just share with you what a couple of online resources say. We can continue the conversation. So I went to Wikipedia, and here's how they describe it. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion is a fabricated text purporting to detail a Jewish plot for global domination, largely plagiarized from several earlier sources. It was first published in Imperial Russia in 1903, translated into multiple languages, and disseminated internationally in the early part of the 20th century. It played a key part in popularizing belief in an international Jewish conspiracy. Let me go to another site. This is Britannica. Protocols of the Elders of Zion, fraudulent document that served as a pretext and rationale for anti-Semitism, mainly in the early 20th century. The document purported to be a report of a series of 24 meetings held in Basel, Switzerland in 1897 at the time of the First Zionist Congress. Their Jews and Freemasons were said to have made plans to disrupt Christian civilization and erect a world state under their joint rule. So it says, liberalism and socialism would be the means of subverting Christendom. If subversion failed, all the capitals of Europe were to be sabotaged. So I just want to share that as a juxtaposition because I have to be fair and balanced, and that's what a couple of online resources say. I haven't done other research. Sorry, guys. Thanks. Please continue.
And if you go deeper, right? Because of course they're going to say that. Expect that. You guys, we have to get to a point where we expect the cover up. Because that's exactly what I would do if I were them. You know what I mean? I would have multiple articles that discredit this document. So what you have to do is you have to use discernment and really find out what they're doing, and if it matches what's in the documents, right? Then you have to find out who financed the document, who put the document together, who was involved. The research has to be extensive. When I say research, I mean days upon days, going deep into how the document was created, who financed the document, who were involved, who were the people involved, that kind of a thing. We just don't take anything on its face anymore.
Now,
So
to
Chip,
be
thank
fair, to be fair, let me do this because I gave you two references that said it was not accurate, it was false. I went to another search engine called Yandex. I typed in the protocols of the blah blah blah. And then I found a website. It's called understandingtheworldtoday.wordpress.com. And they have a document. This is a one-page summary. I'll read it to you really quickly. I'll turn it around. Just to be fair. And again, I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just going to read it to you. Okay, here's the title. Zionist World Order or New World Order is the desired outcome. It will be accompanied by control of money and the media. Goyim are mentally inferior. These are non-Jews. Are mentally inferior and can't run their nations properly. For their sake and ours, we need to abolish their governments and replace them with a single government. This will take a long time and involve much bloodshed, but it's for a good cause. Here's what we'll need to do. First, place our agents and helpers everywhere. Take control of the media and use it in propaganda for our plans. Start fights between different races, classes, and religions. Use bribery, threats, blackmail, lies, and deception to get our way. Use free Masonic lodges to attract potential public officials, appeal to successful people's egos, appoint puppet leaders who can be controlled through blackmail, replace royal rule with socialist rule, then communism, then despotism, abolish all rights and freedoms except the right of force by us, sacrifice people, including Jews sometimes when necessary, eliminate religion, replace it with science and materialism, control the education system to spread deception and destroy intellect, rewrite history to our benefit, use our media to create entertaining distractions, corrupt minds with filth and perversion, encourage people to spy on one another, keep the masses in poverty and perpetual labor, take possessions of all wealth, property, and especially gold, use gold to manipulate the markets, introduce a progressive tax on wealth, replace sound investment with speculation, make long-term interest-bearing loans to governments, give bad advice to governments, and everyone else blame the victim. So that's a juxtaposition of the other things that were said. You can put this all together yourselves and try to make sense of one or the other. I don't know any better or worse on any of it, just to let you know.
Chip, read it again. This is exactly the playbook that Israel is playing by in Gaza. It's exactly the playbook. This is the playbook, and it's exactly what they're doing.
Well, let me, in fairness, let me just tell the audience where it is again, just to understand. People can tear it apart at their leisure. The website is called understandingtheworldtoday.wordpress.com. And I found it on a search engine in Yandex, which is a different search engine, Yandex. And all I typed into the search box was Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It was the fourth link. It says a one-page summary. That's why I clicked it, because it was just something easy to read. So there you
Chief,
go.
I tell you, I will not be surprised if they knock off you live altogether for good. Because just mentioning the protocols of the Elders of Zion, just mentioning it.
But in fairness, though, what I did was I read two sources that completely debunked it and invalidated it, right? And then I read
I'm
one
sure
source. And then I read one source that tended to include things that somebody thought was a part of it. I'll let the audience decide.
All conspiracy,
Yes, very
not
good.
claiming that it's real. I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't believe anything I say. There we go. How do you guys like that? You guys like that? I don't know what I'm talking about. There
Let's
it
do
is.
this, guys, real quick. I'm enjoying your conversation. Is it okay if we allow Federico to chime in?
Surely, Chip.
Please.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys.
Hey
Thanks.
Chip, hey everybody.
Hey.
Hey, Cyrus, man, these are information. I've heard of all of that, but it was kind of stories that you could not imagine that things or that mentality could really exist. But now I'm certain it does, because from previous statement, from actions, from literally it's the statement that just was read online right now, and you look at the world, what's happening in the world, not only in Palestine, everywhere. You see that every single objective in that document was working towards.
That's correct.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and I want to go back because I know you. I mean, you have a lot of good information. I'm gonna correct you on one thing. You know that in the Quran or neither in the Hadith, there is no go unalive the Jews. Nowhere. It doesn't say it. It does say fight them where they fight you and drive them out from where they drove you out from. And he doesn't mention if the that population or that group is the Jews. On the other hand, any extremes in Islam was manipulated by Zionists. If you look, there is a huge amount of Mossad agents where they study Quran and they study how to manipulate. And if you see in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, a lot of people that were arrested, they were Israeli Mossad agents. Like leader in ISIS found to be Mossad agents. And the other thing is that anything mentioned about Bani Israel in the Quran, it means the sons of Jacob. It's just a storytelling that God was saying in the Quran what he had told the sons of Israel, which is the sons of Jacob, not Israel the land. Because a lot of people think, hey, Israel was mentioned 50 times in your Quran. No, but Israel the prophet, Israel Jacob. But yeah, all of this, I encourage everybody to do your own research. You don't need no one on this panel or any other panel to tell you what to do. If you want to know You have the resources. If you want to take a stand, it's time that you will take that stand. If you believe in God, God will question you one day. Why did you stand on that side and not the other? And if you are just non-God believer, you will be asked by your own humanity, why did I stand that choice? Did I make the right call or the wrong call? And everything is right there on the open. And if you cannot see, nobody can make you see, because that is, there is a saying in the Quran that says, don't affirm who you love. God will affirm whoever He wants. So if God doesn't want you to see, you're not gonna see.
Zane, how are you doing?
I
Hey,
appreciate
pretty
what you
good.
just said.
Real quick, so let's let Zane jump in. Go ahead, Zane.
Hey, Chip, pretty good. How are you?
Okay, thank you.
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to, talk about the UN resolution, um, calling for the ceasefire. And I just wanted to share my view about it, and obviously, like, looking to hear from all of you guys. So, I don't think Israel is gonna um, will abide by the resolution.
Yeah.
I believe they will continue to because the intentions were very clear since the beginning. Uh, they've been analyzing people, like they started 24 hours after October 7th attacking Gaza. Uh, um, I believe that sanctions will be put on Israel. They're just not going to stop because they've been getting away for a long time with whatever they have been doing. They just got to the point where they feel like they can do whatever they can do without any punishment. And that is just because they have been used to the support of the United States and all the uh, uh, powerful countries in the world. Now, obviously, America is not going to um, America is changing position now, and we have seen it how they have been dealing with the Israeli government. We have seen criticism from the U.S. government because of the international pressure that has been put on the U.S. government. So they have to stop Israel at some point. Now, unfortunately, um, all they can do is like the support, financial support is probably not gonna stop anytime soon. And that's just because of how the U.S. politics works. And all the funding from like APAC funding politicians, U.S. politicians, and all like the things that most of you people know. That being said, um, America will lose respect from the world because how the world and that like you cannot claim to be the leader of the world, right? While you have seen many people and many protests all over the world, people protesting the G side and not reacting to support financially and protect the country, the people, the so-called country that is responsible for the G side. um that's America don't want to be in that position, right? And Joe Biden's government has lost a lot of support, and they've noticed that they've lost support. We have the elections coming up in November, and that is why they are it's just not that they want to take this position, but they are forced to take this position so to save to not lose more people and more support, and not lose the international like the respect of the international community, right? So bottom line, America will have to join other nations. They will have to put sanctions on Israel because Israel is not going to stop. They are led by people who are bloodthirsty. They will continue unaliving people. Unfortunately, um, there will be sanctions. Israel is not going to stop. And I have been believing this and seeing this since October, that it's going to lead us into a bigger war in the region.
Interesting take. Yeah, I just brought up this article that shows this is that guy, I think Matthew Miller, who's the spokesperson for the State Department. And he says here that the U.S. has determined that even though the UN says it's binding, that the U.S. reads it as being non-binding. So I don't know exactly what you do with that. The question is, who's going to do anything about it if Israel doesn't abide by it? That's the real question. And I think we know the answer to that, unfortunately. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, hopefully the Israelis will at least use restraint, but it looks like after what happened when the U.S., for those who don't know, the U.S., it was 14 nations voted in favor of it, and the only nation, the United States, voted what's called abstain. It's abstained from the vote. And Israel was pissed at that. They wanted the U.S. to veto it outright. So they were going to send a delegation over a couple days ago, but they didn't because of the vote. And now there are people from Israel saying that the U.S. has abandoned Israel or some silly stuff like this. So anyway, 99.9% loyalty is 100% disloyalty in this case. Zane, thank you for sharing what you wanted to share. And I wanted to see if anybody on the panel wanted to jump back in and share their views on that.
I think that the only look, Israel does not give a damn a rat's ass about the UN or anybody else. I mean, in fact, after the vote, they doubled down. They killed another 150 people, or who knows what. They kill them like it's they kill them like it's like they're rats, like it's an infestation. That's how they treat them. They treat them as rats and cockroaches. So look, Biden can stop this war in 5 minutes. All he has to say, no more weapons, no more ammunition, no more money to Israel, period. They are going to fold like a cheap suit and get the hell out of there. So it's all on Biden. Biden is going to lose this election because he's going to lose Michigan and Minnesota. Michigan and Minnesota have the only people that put him over the top was the Arab, the Palestinian vote, the Arab vote, Rashida Tlaib and those guys, and they're going to stay out. They're going to stay out, and he's toast. He's going to lose this election. It's going to go to this idiot Trump, most likely, unless. Look, I think what Biden should do, really, for the sake of the world, for the sake of the freaking world, step down and put Van Halen to lead the party. Van Halen is the only senator who came against the genocide, against Israel, against funding Israel. He is the only one that has balls big enough to stand up to AIPAC and speak truth to power. He's the only one. Biden should step down and let him take the mantle. Otherwise, we're going to descend into oblivion. This whole world is going to go down the freaking tubes. So let's go Van Halen. Let's all coalesce around Van Halen, and maybe we'll have a voice of reason there in the government, because AIPAC bought and paid for all the politicians, almost bar none. Maybe not AOC or Shida Tlaib or some of the 10 people, up to 10, no more than 10 people in Congress, but otherwise all bought and paid for. And they're doing the bidding for Israel, regardless of the genocide and everything else. Yeah, go ahead, Swart.
I agree with you, brother. I just think Trump's going to be a disaster only because he's so pro-Zionist. But I have a question for Chip, you, brother, and Federico. Why is Trump so pro-Zionist? What is it?
It's a money. The Jews give him money.
Gotta give me
money.
Gotta give me something better.
I wouldn't try.
Federico, just to let you know, there's a lot of noise in the background. I don't know if you're at a restaurant or a kitchen, but a lot of water splashing in dishes. Go ahead, guys.
That was water. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Uh,
You guys got? I mean, give me something. Give me something.
I think Trump is like anytime you think of Trump as you're thinking of a coin in your hand, you flip in the air, and whatever comes down comes down. I don't think he makes decisions based on a moment. He makes decisions based. Even if you notice in his administration, he's always fighting with his people, because there's the personal ego and the personal benefiting. Trump has a set mind. If no matter who you are, if you are gonna make money, I better make some of that money. And when I say some of that money, it's half of the money or a little bit more. So if I am allowing you to make 100,000, Donald Trump automatically think that out of that 100,000, I'm taking 60 or 70. So I wouldn't trust Trump. I wouldn't want him in the office, especially because now they promised him to rebuild Gaza. They have Trump towels in Gaza on the beachfront and all of that. So yeah, his economical motivation it's greater than the Palestinian cause. In regards to what was the other question?
Well, that was it. I'm lost because he's going to get 13 billion or whatever it is from Truth Social. The guy's swimming in money. And
Yeah.
so my concern is that I just don't know from his family lineage. I can see that his stepdaughter, his daughter is married to a Jewish guy, right? But it's still not enough motivation for me to be so gung ho about one side in this thing, and I really don't know where the void is. I
If,
don't.
if you ask me, I would say H group started the new world order. I don't think anything is going to stop. A major change in the world has to happen, because by the Zionists being exposed like this, they cannot go on with their lives just
Well,
with no implementation of their project. So
right.
I think the world is going more to the extreme side. Uh, I have I have firm beliefs that a
Why are
war
you
would
muting me, Chip?
war
I didn't.
war
Real quick,
wars.
hold on. This guy,
Yeah.
Tor Nike, who just came on here. Listen, everyone stays muted until it's their turn, okay? So please stay muted. I keep muting you, keep on muting yourself. Thank you.
So I believe the major war by the resistance group in the Middle East is going to be declared on Israel pretty soon, sooner than anybody can think. Uh, and the world is coming to change, whether we like it or not. But I believe firmly that there is no way back after this. After all this exposure, all these, like, everybody knows everything right now. Either you go on with your project, because you can't lie anymore.
Yeah, I do think we're in a new chapter. Let's let Mike get in for a second. Mike hasn't had a chance yet, and then we'll go to Torn Nike or Tor Nike.
Go ahead, Mike, if you're ready.
Yes. Um, I wanna talk. I wanna speak about the point of the Trump, but before about Federico, when he mentioned in the Quran Bani Israel, I want to add to his points. He is correct. It's Bani Israel. It's not the Israeli people we see today, nor the Jewish people. It's actually his, his immediate, kids, and that's how they attach themselves to it. And on Trump issue, I think Trump, it's bipolar, meaning you'll never know what's gonna do tomorrow. So he's the only person that he doesn't know what he's doing tomorrow. And I do not think this country will make that mistake again. Even if, with everything happening, I don't think people will vote for him. I don't think, he's just wabbing left and right, but I don't think he'll win. I think Joe Biden will win. But what I want to say now, go back to the main subject. I think I will call what happened on October 7 an earthquake. It's basically the way I see it. It's the beginning of the end. I think these people it just there's an ayah in the Quran. It said, I'm going to speak it in Arabic, then I'm going to translate. Summun bukmun umyun fahum la yibsirun. They are deaf. That's number one. It's in the Quran, this ayah. It's deaf. Some bukum mean they cannot speak. Umi, they cannot see, and they cannot hear. And that's what I call them. And what's happening today, Netanyahu cannot see and what he is doing. I don't think he can actually see it. I think he's above everything. He thinks he's God. He thinks he is, the only person in this earth that he can do anything he wants, and nobody will say nothing to him. No one will judge him. No one will tell him you're wrong. And that's why I think, and this is like, it's a sign. And I agree. I think this is going to be the end. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be in a year. It might not be in 2 years. But it is the end of this. What do you call them? Of this creation, and I want to just touch on something, and I'm going to mute myself.
Just Mike, real quick. Do you think that means that people who live there are going to be somehow harmed, or that just means the political entity is going to be shifted?
No, I believe that in the Quran, as a Muslim, they're all going to be accumulated there. They will all be there because that's the part. This is a sign of Judgment Day. I just heard an article. I don't know. On the news. I don't know if you heard it. They just announced. There is something in them religion about the red cow, and they said they have the red cow, and they're supposed to slaughter it by the end of this month. I hear some weird stuff that, let me tell you, it is in the Quran, but you see it's going too fast. Like it's happening. Like they have the red cow and they're supposed to slaughter it at the end of this month. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. I'm just saying what I heard. But to see that this small sardine, I will call it a sardine can, whatever, that they think they have all this power. The only power they have is us as an Americans. If it wasn't for us, let me tell you, and the British, I don't understand how they think they're so strong and they are the most powerful army and they have the most money, and everybody you talk to them, we have the technology. Some people, they tell me some weird stuff. They said if it wasn't for us, America will not exist. For them, meaning of Israel. They believe it. That's the bad part. They believe if it wasn't for them, America will not be where it is today. They will believe they're the reason America is today. It's them. It's amazing how they can believe all this. And you talk to them and they're so serious about it. So that tells you are dealing with a human being who has no collective knowledge of what he's talking about. When you say America will not exist if it wasn't for you, that's a big no-no. I don't know where it's coming from. Anyway,
Okay,
I want to go back.
Let's do this. I'm going to give the other person real quick a couple announcements. Okay, there's a moderator. I don't know if the name's in Arabic or not, but please allow me, if you could, to manage the guest flow. If you want to manage the comments and stuff like that, that's great. But I see a lot of invites going up and this, that, and the other. Also, if you're trying to come up and you're not able to, if you keep timing out or you think you're being taken down, it's not me. TikTok has a problem sometimes where the host, you're not connecting properly or something. So you have to do one of two things to fix that. You either have to exit TikTok, come back into TikTok, find the live and re-request. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes you have to restart your phone or change out, turn off and turn back on your network connection, and that usually will fix it. So try one of those two things. I never keep anybody from coming up. Let's give Torn Nike 2390. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. What's on your mind?
My name is Tornike.
Hi.
Hi. Good morning, I guess, or good evening. I don't know where the time is. The thing is now, you're talking about, with all respect, you've been fooled. All of you have been fooled with the numbers that the propaganda numbers are pulled up by each group in the Gaza, which are controlled by them. You've been triggered with the numbers they want to put out to say that 30,000 children has been unalived.
Do you have the accurate? Do you have the accurate numbers? Since we're getting the wrong ones.
It's gonna be at least 1 0 less, and it's not gonna be children. It's gonna be all. Most.
When you say 1 0, you mean instead of being 32,000 and change, it's supposed to be 22,000? Is that the idea?
No, 3,000.
3,000
children. Yeah.
3,000 total people.
Probably because they like to make up the numbers to trigger you more.
What about all the human rights organizations that have come in and tried to independently verify it, and they see the numbers as being accurate?
Are they all? They
Okay,
all.
they have the rights. They have the rights to go. I was not interrupted when the mic was talking, so I don't want to be
Well,
interrupted
you're saying
myself.
something that's extremely controversial, so I'm just trying to clarify. That's all.
This is how the propaganda numbers work. As I myself was a victim of propaganda. No, well, not mine, but my country, with the war with the Russia, as they come up the numbers that does not exist all the time. And this is how the age group works, just like the Russia does. So I am familiar with this, but I think Federico was talking about the new order. It's gonna be much worse than the order that you are calling right now. You want to be under the order of the Muslims, really? You know that what it means to be under the rule of the Muslims? No, you don't, because you never faced one. You have never experienced one. I did. My country did. My people did.
Where are you from?
I'm country of Georgia.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly where Georgia is.
Yes. So my country was under the Muslim siege 4 centuries. They were forcing us to take Islam. They were implementing us jizya. Our children, our little girls and our little boys were captured and sent into slavery. The little boys were sent in Egypt to be raised as the warriors, and the little girls were sent in the, shahs, or the local dukes, which were called the Sanjak Beys, or the sultans, to be the concubines, or the small two girls to be used in Haram Khana, which is the place for concubines of the sultans or the some kind of beys. This is what it's going to be if
So
it's
you
going to be
mentioned,
rule of Muslim.
what is the evidence that the Muslims are going to rule the world? I'm not sure what you mean by the Muslims. And then, as far as the, I think you're saying that most of us.
Rallies,
I think
rallies,
who is
rallies,
which
rallies.
what is Raleigh's? What is that?
Pro-Palestinian rallies, and step by step, painting all over places the Palestinian flags. It's the first step.
The
Making
so
popularizations.
I want to make sure I understand you. You're saying that the fact that there are people protesting in favor of Palestinian autonomy or trying to get out from under the situation they see, that's the first step of an Islamic
Yes,
takeover of the world?
yes. Then comes the Muslimization of the people, which I see on the TikTok step by step. They are making propaganda of Islam, that Islam is better religion. And they are arguing people with Christianity, those who just don't want to take any part of the religion. They are proving that Islam is the right religion. They even showing that the neighborhood in the Chicago calmed down as soon as all of the black people took Islam. It's a big propaganda of the Islam. And plus the so-called Palestinian flag, it's not Palestinian flag, it's the flag of Hejaz. Hejaz. It's the province of the Saudi Arabia where Mecca and Medina, the cradle of the Islam, is located.
What makes you so certain that the things you're sharing with us are accurate instead of the rest of the audience being misinformed? Is it possible that some or all of what you're
Because
saying may be misinformed?
because historically this is how the Islam was spread, where the people were tired of two main religions of Zoroastrianism and Christianity in 7th century. They thought that the Islam will be better for their salvation from both these religions, because the Romans and the Iranians were big oppressors of their people, forcing them to take their own religion, and they thought that Islam was like a neutral, it was different, that their culture would be spared under Islam, but they were dead wrong. Islam did much worse. The Islamic people throughout the centuries unalived much more people than Christianity in whole medieval times.
So,
Not
if I understand you correctly, you're saying that you believe that the genesis of the next chapter of an Islamic takeover of, I guess, the world, perceivably, is starting with support for Palestinians. What would you say to somebody who made the argument that if the Palestinians can't even get out from under their plight with respect to the Israelis, how are they possibly going to spread this takeover that you're thinking is going to happen?
the it's not the Palestinians, it's the organization of which are in the Palestine, so-called Palestine, the Gaza Strip, the age group, which they have gathered all this money starting from 2006. Instead of building Gaza, instead of developing Gaza, they are using this money for propaganda, which we see today in rallies. Do you think the people really care about the Palestinians which go there? Big majority does not. They are being paid. They've been organized.
What evidence? First of all, what evidence do you have to substantiate any of these claims?
I am participant of the rallies in my country, and I know how the rallies are created. I have experience in this. Myself, I was in part of the rallies, how the political rallies was done.
No, but he's asking.
I was never paid myself, but everybody agrees that to make big rallies work, every politician will agree with this. If you want to make like at least 3,000 men to come outside, you have to have finances. You have to have finances. Otherwise, just spreading the word that Palestinians are getting unalived, it's not enough. You need finances. And it's impossible at the same time to have so many rallies just at the same time in the various places of the world. It's impossible without finances. Impossible.
Okay. So you've made a number of assertions, which I'm glad we gave you a chance to make them here based on what you believe. So let's work our way from the last one backwards, if it's okay. And I'm probably going to have a few people come in and share their views as well. The thing that's coming to my mind when I hear some of the assertions that you're sharing is from my experience. And again, I'm not some omniscient person, but I've been to numerous rallies where people are showing their support for Palestine. As far as I know, I've never seen one example of somebody being paid. And I think in the last rally, there was probably between 250 and 350,000 participants in Washington, D.C. Now, I can't speak to what happens in Georgia, but my understanding is that the people who have been paid to go to rallies, and I went to this rally just because I like to try to find out both sides. At the pro-Israel rally, 140,000 college students got paid $250 each to attend that pro-Israel rally. So that's an example of someone being paid. Also, we know from a fact, because people have admitted it, that people are being paid, as has Israel admitted it, that people are being paid to go to places like Wikipedia and update articles that will reflect a more favorable way of phrasing things towards the Israelis. We know there's a direct involvement between the Israeli government and what's happening online because we're seeing direct censorship efforts and even an effort to take over and shut down an app like TikTok, the one we're talking about right now, most likely due to pressure from the Israelis. Because what's happened is that the coverage here has been predominantly in favor of the Palestinian plight, and people who are 25 years old who are weighing in with the hashtags on here are not being paid by the people from Qatar who have siphoned this money off that I think you believe they've done. And the other thing I want to mention is I don't see how it's possible to make the argument, although I've heard you make it, how to substantiate it, that the rallies that are happening in support of Palestine, one, are not genuine, but two, that they're somehow indicative of a next phase of this Islamic takeover of the world. That just seems a leap so far, it's beyond comprehension.
Okay, about the people who truly believe with this Palestinian thing, about the G-side, you know, it's a big country. United States is not the small one. So 250 and 350 for the Washington, it's the small scale. But for Georgia, it might be not. But Washington is small scale, which you just can't be. As I told you, you get triggered with the numbers. This is This is how the propaganda works. You get triggered with the numbers, and you get triggered with the names, with the nouns. 30,000 children unalived, and that's it. You are triggered.
It's not 30,000. It's not 30. It's not 30,000 children. It's about 13 or 14.
It's sad. Like propaganda is trying to spread. The pro-Palestinian propaganda is crying out loud about 30,000 children. This is how it was at least a month ago that I was hearing all the time.
What's the evidence though? You keep saying that word propaganda, but what evidence do you have to refute the numbers? You keep being very certain about it. What do you draw that from?
The main source that gives the numbers of those 30,000 children is the Ministry of Health of Gaza. This is where this number coming from.
Okay.
This is
What
which Ministry of
what
Health,
makes you believe that they're overstating the numbers to an extent? You're saying that
because this
but you're saying they're overstating it by a factor of tenfold. You're saying it's somewhere around 3,000, no more than 3,000. That seems completely impossible. What alternate universe have only 3,000 people died?
because the Ministry of Gaza is controlled by age group. And as I can see, they are, yes, because it's their ministry, they are controlled. Also, there has been many UNRWA tunnels unrevealed under the main, many age group tunnels has been revealed under the UNRWA as well, and also UNRWA members were also accused being the part of the 7th of October, even if some of the members were involved directly in those attacks, which was already written in the articles. You can check it out. I don't have now the power to find it out. And
Can you just explain, why does the Israeli government seem to at least agree for the most part with the figures? Because the US government has been putting pressure on the Israeli government due to the excessive number of civilian casualties. The numbers being discussed, at least publicly between the governments, tend to coincide in relative terms with the numbers being set forth by the Gaza Health Ministry, which have also been reviewed and confirmed by other independent human rights organizations. Is everybody in on some grand scheme to lie, including the Israeli government?
I'm gonna say there's the much bigger game than just the war between Israelis and Palestinians. It's a big political game where the interests are clashing with each other in this region. So that is the why, like, nobody gives a damn about the other Muslims all around the world except for Palestinians, because there are many atrocities in Sudan, in Russia, where the Muslims are under the pressure. We see the destroyed mosques in the Uyghur states of Chinese, but nobody talks about it. But don't you think that destroying mosque in China is not something to protest? No, I don't see anybody protesting against the Chinese government for doing this. It's the Palestine, only the Palestine. You know why? Because there's big political game going on in this Suez, in the Red Sea, Suez area, as Israel and Saudi Arabia and the United Emirates are trying to create some kind of new economical union, which will create new economical sphere of influences, which gonna make to avoid any kind of oil dependency on Iran, and it will make Iran to have less influence in the region, and it will make side player of the region of the Middle East.
But who's propelling all of that? You think it's the Palestinians that are propelling?
No. It's the government of Iran and the government of Russia and secretly government of China. Probably.
What you're saying that the government of Iran is trying to make it so that it sells less oil?
I mean, Iran wants to stay monopoly in the Persian Gulf. So Persian Gulf, it's one of the biggest sources of the oil. But if there will be a communication with the Saudi Arabia and with the UAE, all the UAE oil can be drifted through Saudi Arabia with the Israel, as Israel also planning to build a canal, or either it can be delivered with Israel through Suez Canal, and like a route of the oil from Persian Gulf will be transformed into the Suez Canal. And this is something that Iran doesn't want. Iran doesn't want Saudi Arabia to become regional power of the Middle East.
Yeah, I think everything you just said with that is quite plausible. In fact, I've studied that description of events, and I don't think it's out of the question. What I'm trying to figure out is how on earth does any of what you just said there, which seems quite potentially reasonable, square with any of the things you said at the beginning of our conversation, which seem completely far-fetched?
About what? About the spreading?
Well, you said that
spreading Islam. Okay.
You said the spread of Islam, the Gaza Health Ministry providing propaganda.
Yeah. I will get why it's connected, because all the rallies which are financed all around the Europe, it's gonna make then pressure all the governments. This is what they are planning for. They are trying to pressure the governments of Europe because they have the power to pressure Israel, to make Israel not only stop. First step is to stop Israel from what they are doing in Gaza. Next will be, I would say, a court that will declare that Israel's existence is false and that the Israeli people were the colonizers. That's why they are calling colonizers to justify their existence. The Palestinians are justifying their existence as if Israel just took the country away from them. And after that, if they make this pressure on the, if they make the pressure of the world, Europe's government to make Israel to stop operations in Gaza, next step, they will make pressure all these governments to recognize Israel, unrecognize Israel as a state, and instead of Israel, recognize the Palestine. This will lead destruction of Israel, only democratic country in the Middle East, and then to make it Sharia law extremist Islamic country of Palestine. This will be the catastrophe not only for the Jews and Israelis living in this region, but also all the Arabic countries, which kind of have one opened window with the democracy and the Western world. All the Arabs who are seeking somehow the Western help from the Western worlds.
So
And
who? You said the Iranians, the Chinese, and the Russians might be aligned on the one front. How do they relate to the Islamic countries that are trying to accomplish its goals? That's why I'm not making the connection.
It's mostly work of Iran. Iran wants to have influence over Middle East, not only over the Middle East. This is, and also does Russia. With the combined forces, they want to have monopoly over the oil and its transportations throughout the region, because transportation oil from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, it will be the big network of the solution, and then they will make a monopoly all over the world, making dependent countries like United States, countries of Europe, etc., etc. At the same time, Russia wants to be dominated in Eastern Europe at the same time. That's why it started war in Ukraine. It's not about the Russians living in Donbass. It's not about the Russians living in Crimea. Main idea is that Ukraine has, first of all, Ukraine is the corridor from Russia to Europe for the gas transportation. And second of all, the Donbas region itself is full of gas. It has many gas mines. That's why the Donbas has such a crucial meanings for the Russia, because Russia could attack. Russia could have started attacking Kiev right away, because Kiev is much closer to Moscow than Donbas. It's very, very far.
That's not geographically accurate. Go look at a map. But what I did want to ask you is this: Russia had built or was building, about to finish the connection of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And why would it attack Ukraine when it already had an artery? In fact, it was the attacking of Ukraine that resulted in the demolition, which I'm sure the Americans had said publicly that if they did attack, they would demolish the pipeline. Why would they attack when they knew they already had an artery to northern Germany to supply all their gas? Doesn't make any
Because,
sense.
as I told you, the amount of the gas in the Donbas is such a big amount that can put Russia outside from the gas transportation, and Nord Stream will not have any kind of meanings anymore. Because to build the Nord Stream, it was not even finished that much. So, and also the Europe realized why the Russia needed gas. Like when they attacked in 2008, because of dependency under the Russia, Europe didn't do much to help us that time,
Are
and
you
we were
talking
kind
about
of abandoned.
Abkhazia and South Ossetia? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
2008 war. Only the United States was one who sent a battleship in the Georgian ports, and that is how the war stopped just in 5 days.
What role did the United States and Mikhail Saakashvili have in prompting that particular conflict? Did he have any role at all?
Only role that Mikhail Saakashvili had, that he started to develop country, and it started to develop country towards the West. And it showed that you can defeat corruption in former Soviet country. You can build something from the former Soviet country. You can make former Soviet country a country, not like a state entity or something. This was something that Putin was really angry about it. He didn't like that my country was developing, that my country was developing towards the West, and the West was kind of giving the attention to my country after all these years, because in 90s Georgia was the synonym of the corruption, of uncreatable country, that you could do nothing there. It was just a big black hole for the Europe and for the world. But just in a the Rose Revolution happened in 2003. I would say by 2007, I could say Georgia was already a fully organized country. Just in the 4 years, Mikhail Saakashvili
Let me do
managed
this.
to.
We've had a lot of conversation. I appreciate you sharing what you shared. There's a lot to make heads and tails of with what you shared. I'd like it for you to stay with us if you don't mind. I'd like to hear you chime in. I wanted to give some others a chance to talk about perhaps the numbers, which I think is maybe one of the more incendiary things you shared. I mean, I guess it's possible that the numbers are far less, but if it's down in the 3,000 range, I don't think there's anybody in the world that thinks that only 3,000 Palestinian civilians have died in Gaza. I think that you'd have to have a pretty broken calculator to make that statement. But I wanted to mention one last thing, and that is with regard to the 2008 conflict between Russia and Georgia, there was a lot more to it than simply Russia just invading. Just like there was a lot more to it than what. Let me finish, and I'm going to let somebody else chime in because we went about 20 minutes there. I'm just going to mention this. I've studied this conflict extensively, like I have the other conflicts in the region. This is what I do for a hobby. And my understanding is much different than the simplistic explanation that we've been given in the West after, again, same thing with Ukraine. There's a lot more to it that we don't hear about in the West because our Western corporate media shares very little of the context for a lot of these conflicts. So that's for another day and time, although you're from there, so I don't want to disregard it, but I'd like to have you come back, if you don't mind, for a more in-depth discussion about that. What I want to do is I wanted to give one of the new people here, Palal Hijabi, a chance to speak. And if you want to talk about the numbers or if you want to talk about something else, please feel free.
Hi, I was invited up by the mods, because I guess I was saying things in the chat, but I guess regarding the 3,000 unalived, like it's been 6 months of relentless booming. Like, how is that a far-fetched number? Just the Flower Massacre alone was about 150 people. The multiple invasions.
You're gonna have no. By the way, just real quick, mods. I asked once before. Please do not invite up guests. Okay, I don't want to take people's mod privileges away. This is the second time I'm asking. I like to manage the guest flow. It's easier for me to do it, and then I can know what to expect, and I can pace things out. Okay, thank you very much. Please continue.
The other thing he said, I'm sure you guys have spoken about and it's like tired, but he said that Palestinians act like their land was taken away. I mean, this is literally a fact. Like, the Balfour Declaration was a letter, a promise of somebody who was in debt and was trying to, like, here's my neighbor's car, just don't go after me, sort of thing. And it was the Palestinians that were a colony of Britain that were supposed to gain their independence, and instead, because of all of the Zionist terrorists who are bombing Britain and who were committing crimes all over, everybody just wanted to shut them up, and they partitioned Palestine and gave them a chunk of it. So yes, it was absolutely taken away.
I think that's beyond dispute. There are others who, from on pro-Israel side, say that people just left or something like this, which is, I don't know how you can possibly make that statement. Obviously, listen, it's unfortunate that 700,000+ people were pushed off of where they lived. Some stayed in the territory, but many didn't. And that's a historical fact. Anybody who denies that is just not being genuine. It's disingenuous to turn that away. But the numbers, I have a really hard time believing that anybody, even themselves, believes that surely through propaganda that anybody could get away with shifting the numbers to that extent. So I don't know if it's exactly 32,000 or if it's 26 or, whatever the number is. I don't know how many of that number is militants. That's another consideration. But we do know that this is the largest number of children and journalists ever unalived in this period of time in a war in modern history. This is totally brand new. And there must be some intent, or the ICJ case would not have been brought, because nobody wants to take a case to the ICJ for no reason whatsoever. So there's a lot to chew in there, but I don't think 3,000 is that's not being it's being disingenuous as well.
And Chip, if I may add, even if we say it was 3,000, right? They went insane over the about 750 civilians who were unalived in Israel, which should have never happened. And of course, there were also soldiers unalive. So if it was 3,000 civilians, if we were to have the same reaction they had for their 750 civilians, would that be okay? Because we're constantly told we're not allowed to justify what happened on October 7th, rightfully so. And yet, when we hear 3,000, 30,000 unalive Palestinians, we immediately hear a justification. Oh, it's war. They're casualties. So is it hypocrisy? Is it because Palestinians are not seen as human? That's why you're able to justify it. I don't think we should allow them to get away with justifying it, because the minute we say anything about October 7, or if we're talking about anything unrelated, they always bring us back to October 7 to distract us.
Yeah, may I add to that? The condemnation of October 7th just puts you on the defensive, just like the anti-Semitic thing or any other thing. Do you condemn October 7th? No. Do I condemn resistance? Do I condemn our forefathers that freed themselves from England? No, I don't condemn them. Why would I condemn them? They're fighting for the freedom of the people. I think they're brave, absolute, wonderful military personnel that carried out a precision mission just to take hostages so they can trade for the people that are falsely imprisoned in Israeli jails. So, no, I don't condemn October 7th. I condemn the loss of life, but I don't condemn October 7th at all. And the reason for that is because it is something that they are using. There's something far-fetched behind it. We know they unalived a bunch of their own people, so why are they not in condemnation?
But Freedom Palestine, I think, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, I think to even engage in that dialogue where we have to sit here and say condemn or not condemn, first of all, what does condemnation have to do with anything, right? Like, okay, I condemn spicy food because it gives me a stomach ache. Am I getting rid of it? No. So why are we now wasting time condemning October 7th? I didn't commit it. This is what we're left with.
But here's the funny thing. Not one of them is condemning the genocide. Not one of them is condemning the genocide.
The G side. I need them to stop killing, unaliving people.
Exactly.
That's my point. I don't care who condemns what. Whoever has the power to stop unaliving people needs to stop. We need to stop with this rhetoric of who's condemning what and who's wrong and who's right. End of the day, it's wrong to unalive innocent people, and that has to stop. That's it. I don't care who's condemning. And it's not you. I think they're always trapping us into this corner of, oh yeah, I condemn, I don't condemn, and we're not talking about the fact. The fact is there's people starving, and it is directly a result of Israelis stopping the aid, and people are dying from airstrikes. So every time they try to distract from that by talking about something like October 7th or 19th, anything else, we shouldn't allow that.
I need to say something really quickly. There's some comments flowing around about the fact that the reason the aid is not getting in through the southern border, which is the Rafah crossing with Egypt, is because Egypt is somehow not allowing trucks to come in. So for those of you who don't know, let me clarify this. So Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, the state that I'm from, the previously mentioned one who's been sort of pushing back publicly, and Jeff Merkley from Oregon actually traveled to the Rafah border crossing to find out what was the holdup with the aid. Why is not enough aid getting into Gaza? And here's what they found out. The Israelis maintain a military presence on the Gaza interior side of that border, not the Egyptian side. There are thousands and thousands of aid trucks waiting at the Egyptian side of the border. There's plenty of pictures of it. You can go to Google Maps and look down from the satellites and see it. It's the Egyptian inspection process that is the bottleneck, as exactly what Senator Van Hollen and Senator Merkley noted. They came back and said it is unacceptable, the delay that the Israeli quote unquote inspections are causing to the flow of aid into southern Gaza. And from the north, we know all too well that Israel controls everything and anything that goes through the Eretz crossing. So it's Israel that's created the bottlenecks for aid to get in or out. Some does flow through. It's not that none is coming in, but it's nowhere near sufficient for the level of need with the humanitarian crises that are developing. That's just the facts. So real quick, I have to, Swash, is it okay if I make room for some other folks? Can I take you down? Is that okay? I have to take down a few people to do this. So let me let Palestinian, a couple more people want to get in here. So I'll tell you what, Freedom, let me do this. Let me bring up somebody new and let them speak, because a few people haven't had a chance to get in yet. So let me let in Mohammed Jalal. He hasn't had a chance to speak yet. And let me see here. We have Roland Dharma. Sometimes these folks don't connect right away, though. But Tourniquet, I want you. Listen, I'm going to follow you, and I hope you'll come back. We can talk about the what happened in 2008 in your country. That'd be fun to talk about, and we can also talk more about some of the things you've also brought up. They're all interesting things to talk about. So thank you for sharing your views tonight.
Hey,
You're
Tim.
welcome.
Yeah.
Just before I drop, I wanted to address some of the things that he said, because this guy, Tor Nike, he made a bunch of statements without any proofs, right? And he clearly looking at it like he's blaming religion and attacking basically one religion, right, which is Islam, and I've heard many things that he stated without absolutely any evidence. So Tornike, if you make any claim, you have to have your sources ready. Otherwise, this is not about your opinions, because people that are watching, they don't care about my opinions nor your opinions, but they care about facts and something based on reality.
Can I respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
So first of all, my proof is the spread of Islam, which happened in the 7th century. It's kind of like, as it is said, the history repeats itself, and we are seeing the repeatings of the history with the spreading of Islam, with the new wave which we see now. We see many pro-Palestinian rallies. We see many people converted in Islam on the TikTok, and the TikTok also is being used. As I scroll myself, you can scroll it yourself in TikTok. You can see how many Islam preachers are here, how many lives are created to show
Have
that
you
Islam is
seen?
here.
Have you seen how many people? Have you seen how many lives attacking Islam, spreading propaganda and hate, and on a daily basis? Have you paid attention to those? Do you see that those
Who's
are a
attacking
lot on
Islam?
TikTok? But I'm seeing those on a daily basis. So
I
my
also see
point,
the daily basis the Islam's attacking the Christianity and the
so
Judaism. We can
so
argue this all
listen,
the
listen,
Okay, hold
listen.
on.
Guys, can I say
Real quick,
something really quick?
hold on, real quick. So here's the thing. There are definitely examples anecdotally of each of the things you both are referring to. And so saying that the 7th century spread of Islam is the predicate to a global takeover in 2024, that's a little bit of a stretch. So if you have, here's what I'd like to invite you to do, Tourniquet, or I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Come back to the next time we come up. I'll have you up. You can give you plenty of time. Bring something a little more substantive than 7th century spread of Islam. That is not proof. That is your interpretation of something that is open to a wide variety of interpretations. In fact, most people, if asked that, would say the exact opposite. That right now, that the turn of what's happening now is the other way around. That the Western powers are implementing their will on the powers that are typically Muslim or Islamic, and they vilify them, and then they use projection of power based on that vilification post 9/11. That's how I see it. But anyway, I don't want to negate your point of view. Just bring a little something more to back it up, and we'll happily talk about it. But back and forth on TikTok. Palestinian rallies and 7th century Islam is not enough to justify or explain the things that you've
Ab-
alleged.
It's also
Absolutely,
it's
I'm
al-
dropping. But
But
John Nike, come to my live. I'll do one-on-one with you if you want to do that.
Okay, so that sounds great.
Clip,
All
there
right,
is
thank you.
something that negates what he says, which is the fact that they
Thanks,
use
Sam.
the word Palestinian and Muslim like
You can.
interchangeably when they want. But the fact is, Israel attacked Christians in Gaza, and that there's a lot of Christian Palestinians. They are not, they call us Arab when they want to, they call us Muslims when they want to, and they call us Palestinians if they admit we exist when they want to get their goal. They're the ones, they keep projecting what they're doing. They are the theocratic ethno-state that is trying to exist on being a religious ideology, whereas Palestine was a secular state, and we want to go back to being a secular state. The fact that the majority of the population practices Islam is not proof of anything. That is a choice, and there will be freedom of religion, and a real one, not one where you stop people from going to their places of worship.
And I would say that the charge that people are
Chip,
being paid to come out is really absurd. I mean, it totally undermines that there's humanity in people, and when they see images that it doesn't incite them to get out in the streets and protest and express our First Amendment rights. I mean, this guy is implying that, you know, the millions of people out in the streets during the Vietnam War, were they all paid? Was it all a grand conspiracy to pay these people? And there's been more people out in the streets since October 7th than I've ever seen in my time of doing political activism, and that is purely on the basis of what we're seeing real time on our screens, which is a real time ethnic cleansing, and that gets people very, very upset and into the streets, and even more into the streets when we see that our representatives, quote unquote, are not doing their job to represent the people. They're actually representing the military-industrial complex and AIPAC's wish. So the fact, it's really offensive to hear that, oh, they're being paid. That implies that nobody has any humanity, and we're all just motivated by a dollar sign. Come on, man, that's ridiculous.
Exactly. Hello, everybody. My name is Mohammed Jalal. How are you doing?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just congratulations for the live. Is really nice, really interesting. Just to address a few things, the guy before he was saying about Muslims conquered the world by sword. I mean, they converted people by force. That's already proven. It's a lie. And you know, the funny thing, he was talking about propaganda, doing it. I was laughing by myself and seeing propaganda again and again. And he shot in his foot by himself when he was mentioning jizya. Jizya basically is the tax non-Muslims they were paying when Muslims they were ruling, basically. And the jizya is to replace the zakat, which is the obligatory charity every Muslim need to do, and is 2.5% of your wealth every year. You have to do it. You don't have no choice, okay? And non-Muslims, they were paying jizya, which is replace those 2.5%, and it was really, less. I don't know exactly the percentage of it, but it was, just something symbolic in exchange for protection, okay, by Muslims. Okay, they were ruling at that time. And
okay. I want to respond to this when he finishes.
Sorry?
I want to respond to this when you finish.
No problem. I will not interrupt you. Basically, the protection, it was like no harm. Okay, no one can say anything to you, no damage to your church or wherever, no, nothing at all. You got your religion, you got your freedom of religion completely, and you paid the jizya to replace the tax Muslims they were paying, which is, we says that it was more than, really more than the jizya. So the argument in itself doesn't stand. Plus, he was talking about in the involvement of Iran geopolitically talking, and doesn't have any basis whatsoever. Is proven already, but I don't want to go there. It's just a quick one about the jizya and the Muslim taking over by force, and it's it's really funny, and I want to thank them if they are listening right now. I will really love to thank them, because every time they spread a lie about Muslims or about Islam, automatically will trigger someone to do his research or her research about Islam, about jizya, about everything, any topic they touch. In this will trigger more Muslim to become Muslim, to be reverted. Then that's all I'm saying. Thank you very much.
All right, go ahead, Torn.
Yeah, what he said generally it's true, but on the paper. That was how it's explained in the history, how it's explained in the rules of the Muslims. But one is what was written in paper, and another was in practice. Anytime people who were at first, jizya was quite low, and Christians allowed themselves to Christian families to pay the jizya. But year by year, even in Caliphate period, even in Ottoman imperial period, jizya was been rising and rising and rising and rising, was making impossible for Christians to live, to keep their Christianity this much, because every year the payment of the jizya was rising. So that's why many Christians unfortunately had no choice.
Please stay Freedom, please, guys, listen. We're gonna let people talk. Let's give him at least a couple of minutes to share his point of view. We gave everybody else a couple minutes, okay? Please, thank you. Please finish.
Yeah, then Christians, like Georgian Christians, could not afford themselves to keep paying jizya, because they were even barely making any money to themselves to survive, and plus now the jizya was impossible to live. So unfortunately they were forced to take Islam in order to not to pay jizya anymore, at least to keep some kind of food in their homes. At the same time, we have the Greeks, which are calling themselves Urums, but they speak Turkish. They are Orthodox and they're claiming they are Greeks, but at the same time they speak Turkish language. The story goes that the Greeks living in the nowadays Georgian, Turkey, Armenian territory, they were forced either to change their religion or change their language in order to avoid paying jizya. They choose religion and they have to devote their language. That's the explanatory. That's why they are called Urums. They are claiming they are Greeks, so let's say they are Greeks. And also the many Armenians also were subjugated, where more or less Armenians kind of managed to keep themselves more or less independent from them until Armenian genocide, which happened in 1915, because the Armenians were traders and Armenians were more or less more acceptable in Ottoman society, as they had a strong lobby in the Ottoman Empire, unlike Georgians.
Mike, it's not that I want to interrupt you, but you're just going down a whole different path that's going to take a lot more time.
And for the last moment about the politics, let me just show you the camera. This is the picture of the Sinwar himself visiting Moscow with the Sergei Lavrov, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia. By the way, he was born in Georgia, and I feel sorry. Yep.
Let me make
Look
it big.
at the picture. Tell me that it's not.
Yeah, that's him.
Sinwar and Sergei Lavrov, and also you probably know who he is. I don't know who he is, but
Listen,
I guess from
That's Haniya, not Sinwar.
This is not Sinwar. This is Haniya.
Oh, what's his name again?
Haniya.
Haniya. That's okay.
And he live in Qatar. He does not live. I mean, he used to be the prime minister in Palestine, but he's not anymore. Long time ago, and he lives in Qatar.
But he has the connection still. Nobody would leave. So it means the
So
So we all have the
political
connection.
triangle we have here.
this is
And
listen. Trump has connection right now. He's not the president anymore. He has connection with all. He went to even North Korea and he has connection. What this has to do with anything?
He also has connection with Russia, as he is admitting that Putin was a good guy.
I'm saying Putin is a good guy. Does that make him bad?
Putin is a bad guy.
Why he's
He,
bad? Because he does not go with your rhythm. Why he's bad? Because
he's
you have a
bad
war in Ukraine.
because he started an occupation in my country, which still continues.
Okay, I'm going to read something for the audience. This is important for Tornike to hear. I apologize for interrupting, but this is something. Listen, I've studied this ad nausea, and I'm going to read Tornike what I believe to be is I'm not from Georgia. I'm not from Russia. I have no damn dog in the hunt. And people who are from countries who are involved in conflicts tend to take very one-sided views of things. So I'm going to tell you what my understanding is. This is a very neat summary. It's not everything involved because there's a lot of backstory to this with previous activities under previous administrations. But here's the bottom line. Russia did not invade, quote unquote, Georgia in 2008. It responded to Georgian shelling of South Ossetia, which were attacks on both civilians and Russian peacekeepers. Let me finish the thought. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, a brief civil war broke out between South Ossetia. I'm going to show you the map here, if I still have it up here. Here's the map.
Everything is lie.
Hold on, just let me finish. It's not a lie. This is what happened. This is not Russian propaganda. This is what the international community that evaluated this after the fact did a report, and this is what they relayed in their report. So here's South Ossetia right there. Here's Russia. Let me show you. This is Russia right here on the big map. Here's the area in the Caucasus right here. This is Georgia. This is right here. And then this is the region called South Ossetia. This is North Ossetia, which is in Russian territory. And here's Abkhazia over to the west. So this was what happened was the Georgian government, there was Russian peacekeepers because of previous conflict between these two regions. The Georgian government, which is Mikhail Saakashvili was the president at that time, from Tbilisi, here's the capital, started shelling civilians. There was a dispute. This sounds very familiar. This territory, the Georgian government wanted to forcibly re-affect this community into Georgia, wanted to reintegrate them with force. Therefore, they wouldn't do it. They wanted to rejoin Russia. So what they did was they started shelling the civilians. Same thing that happened in the Donbass in Ukraine, exact same situation. So what Russia did was they moved in peacekeepers to try to quell the peace. Same thing they did with respect to the Minsk Accords. Then what happened was the Tbilisi government continued to shell not only the civilians, but also the Russian peacekeepers. So they moved in with additional hardware, secured
We
the
never
area.
shelled the Russian peacekeepers. It's the wrong.
They
Because
did.
I was seeing in live what was going on. There was the live television. There were journalists there showing what was going on. First of all, in a recent the Hague decision, these previous reports were declared not real, and all the blame went to the Russia. Second of all, so-called district South Ossetia was created only in 1921. Before that, Ossetians even never lived on this area. It was created when the Georgia was occupied by Soviet Union in 1921.
Let's again, hold on. What I want to do is I want to just read that for context because it gave a different view than what you shared. I'd love to have you come back on for a more detailed discussion about that. I just want to have enough information to give the audience a different viewpoint. And that's what I happen to believe based on what I've studied. And I'm somebody who studies this stuff independently. But I'm happy to hear your point of view as someone on the ground, but not tonight. What I want to do is you're happy to come back, Mike. We can even talk in the background. I followed you. We can either DM or you can email me. But I'd love to have that conversation. I think it'd be an interesting one. I do want to say that we're coming towards the end of tonight. Let me see if there's anybody else in the guest queue. I was supposed to finish at 9 p.m. and now it's 9:25. So let me go around the horn really quickly. If anybody has any last statements they want to make, I think, Roland, I appreciated what you had to say. Let me give you a chance to say something else about the protests.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to say anything more about the protests. I feel like I made my
Okay,
point.
if you want to
But
make any other points before we close down.
yeah, I keep hearing about October 7th. I keep hearing the Zionists go on and on with much emotion about how H group unalived 1,200 people, and they keep stamping on that, and they keep stamping on the grapes and 1,200 people killed. I finally buried in and looked at all the videos, the GoPros and the aftermath and all that, and I actually learned some stuff. I saw some horrific things. I'm pro Palestinian, but I saw some horrific things that were done by Hamas, and I will admit that. I saw no evidence of rape, but what I did see as a veteran of the Persian Gulf War, I know what munitions do forensically. I see what they do, and I saw evidence of Hellfire missiles shot into vehicles and burning humans to a crisp and burning cars to where nothing is inside, where they're just skeletons. And it pisses me off, pardon my French, that the pro-Israelis are going on and on that H Group did 1,200 casualties. This is an absolute lie. I've also seen videos of Israeli helicopter pilots not showing their faces and being interviewed by French newscasters. You can't make this up because the helicopters are in the back of them. I can see the helmets. I can discern what is propaganda and what is actual military equipment. And these guys were saying that they don't know why, but they were also being told to fire missiles into crowded areas. And when you talk about the chain guns that are on the front of those Apaches, these are 30 millimeter rounds. And when that gets sprayed into an area, that unalives tons of people. And then there's also evidence that there were tank shells fired in. So I need for people to start standing up to this lie that H Group did all of October 7th. I did see H Group members do some heinous things. I will admit that. But I know because of the Hannibal Directive that the IDF came in there and closed their eyes and pulled the trigger. And then they step back with their propaganda machine and say, look at everything that Hamas did. So it's clear evidence. Anybody who was in the military can look at the damage on the ground, and there's nothing in H Group's arsenal that can do that level of damage other than RPGs and AK-47s. And that's kind of all I want to say right now.
Yeah, I want to 100% corroborate that point. I was also in the Army. I saw the result of Hellfire missiles on what was called the Highway of Death when I was deployed in the First Gulf War. I was on the ground. I was literally right next to these burned out vehicles that looked identical in terms of the melted metal and the bodies that were completely skeletized and burnt to a crisp. Excuse my language. And it was identical. And because of the Hannibal Directive, we know that they were very indiscriminate in their use of force, which, by the way, if you don't know what that is, it means that rather than their civilians and soldiers being taken captive, because they don't want them to be able to use as leverage or intelligence, they give their military authority to engage the enemy, including any collateral damage that might occur. And that's been their doctrine from the beginning. And that's why they've continued bombing areas that might have civilians that have unfortunately unalived in the physical structures inside of northern Gaza. About 50 or so hostages unfortunately died that way. So
right.
My best guess is, and I've tried to think of the numbers, about 320 were soldiers and other military personnel. So that takes 320. It was 1,167 human beings that died that day inside Israel. About 330 were military. That leaves about 830 people. Among that 830, I think the H Group is responsible for about a third of those.
Yeah,
and the
that would make sense.
The Israeli. That's my best guess.
And then we also need to talk about the AI gospel that they're using to level Gaza. They're just carpet bombing Gaza using AI to most efficiently take out the structures and create a space where it's much easier for ethnic cleansing for people not to return. There's no morality to this army. In fact, the fact that they have to say that is a shield for people not to look at their immorality.
Yeah, it's very disturbing. And so, but Netanyahu was asked in an interview, he said that they were taking steps to create a plan to quote unquote move the people of Rafah so that when they do their offensive, it's not going to unalive a lot of civilians. And the interviewer asked him, was Jonathan Carl, he said, well, a lot of people are worried that there are going to be a lot of civilian casualties. And if these people relocate outside of Gaza, that they'll never be allowed back in. Where else are they to go? And Netanyahu said, well, there's plenty of places up north they can go. Yeah, everything's completely destroyed. It's like a moonscape.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's dead bodies underneath the rubble and all sorts of stuff. It's a hellscape. There's no food, no water,
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
Did
By the
you
way, you got to be over the age of 6 to come in here. There, character.
did you hear that they're using the rubble to make the pier?
Yeah, they're using actual remnants of some of the destroyed structures to use as the foundation for this pier they're building. How disgusting is that?
Yeah. The most moral army in the world.
Yeah. So this is just the most immoral. They forgot 2 letters. I am.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, we have one new visitor came in, but that was the person who just shot off like that. What I'm going to do is I want to just real quick. I want to let everybody know the schedule for the next time I'm doing this. I normally go live Wednesday nights on my regular schedule from 7 p.m. usually till 9 p.m. I'm stretching it tonight a little bit. Saturdays I go live from 12 noon until about 3 or 4 p.m. So that's really a good slice of time if you want to come back in. But I do them impromptu here and there, and I've done a lot lately. So, but if you're somebody who wants to come in and you want me to cover a particular subject, you can always email me. It's chipbarnesonline@gmail. So if you have a topic, I do want to talk about the Georgia war because I think the propaganda, speaking of propaganda, that person said, is so thick, both in Ukraine as well as in Georgia, that the Russians are completely vilified by the West, and it has nothing to
Absolutely.
do.
I agree.
It's
And that it
it's
started on the
so
first day of the 2008 Olympics was
yes.
pretty corny.
Yeah, so we get a steady diet of lying by omission and misinformation, which results in the Russians being considered the great adversary and vilifies Putin. That's been happening since 2003 when he would not go along with the Iraq War and he started expelling U.S. and British oligarchs from Russia who were completely devastating the Russian economy and vilifying and basically making their people's standard of living drop by 50 or 60% on average. So anyway, that's what I want to say about that. Yeah, did you want to chime in?
Chip, can I just make my final remarks? Because
Go ahead.
I want
Go ahead.
to backtrack a little bit to what Turnike was saying. So to combat the propaganda, there's 2 things that I keep seeing popping up constantly. The one thing is, like, they keep talking about, like, he's talking about jizya and things in the past, right? If all of that was an issue, okay, well, we've had multiple things happen since then. There's a partition, and now there's West Bank and Gaza, and there's Israel proper, which is, colonized Palestine. But why, like, I don't think we have to, number one, keep mentioning relevance, because how is that relevant to them unaliving 30K plus people, right? I think to combat their propaganda, it's like, what does the jizya have to do with the fact that they won't leave West Bank and they continue to occupy it? So to just, like, they keep pulling us to October 7 and, oh, we're a teeny tiny country among all these other Arab countries. Well, then we have our own actual facts to use. The second thing that I noticed they do, just because as a Palestinian, it's so blatant to me, they keep saying the Palestinians think and the Palestinians feel. Now, if you go in a court of law, how people, you can't say.
Okay, I think she got cut off. Anyway,
Can you hear me?
yeah, go ahead, and then I'll
Yes.
finish up.
So if you go to a court of law, that was the second point, you can't bring up how people think or feel. If you were to tell a judge, the Palestinians don't like us, they want to unalive us, that's how they think, you're not going to be given a chance. So that's their only arguments. They don't actually go off of facts. They say, this is how Palestinians feel and think about queer people. This is how Palestinians feel and think about Jewish people. This is how, and so you need to constantly combat that. What are your facts? Are you inside of a Palestinian person's mind? Because when Palestinian people talk, we're able to talk about facts. This is what Israel did. This is the war crimes they've committed. We're always able to point to things. They're always saying, oh, they teach their kids since birth, since school to hate us. And they have no proof of that. This is just their perception because they're projecting their own mindset on us. Like, we don't hate Jewish people. That is not true. So I think those are just the 2 things that are important when you're talking to Azayo to combat. Relevance and do not tell me how people think. Give me actual concrete Fact. Thank you so much, Chip, and good night.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your views. Come back soon. Yes, Freedom. Freedom, did you want to chime in? Or did you want to go, Mohammed? I don't know. It doesn't matter who goes next.
If you don't mind, please. Just a quick one. When we talk with Zionist or pro isn't real so-called Israel, we need to understand they are following a manual. They are following a manual, and is already someone brought up this manual basically is to keep interrupting people. You don't let them speak. You divert for the argument. You know what I mean? This is how they speak and how they discuss things, how they debate. It's not casual. It's not casual. They speak all of them in the same way, bringing up all the same topics or the same, similarity. If we are talking about scripture, etc., we need to understand that they are not stupid. They are not genuine. We do need to understand they are not honest like us. They are not like genuine people trying to do the right thing, to debate in the right way. They know they are on the wrong side, and they know that exactly. And that what they do, they will try to debunk you, to try to to shut you up, to divert from the main topic, to just say, telling stories and lies and, mix off each psychology way to, to make you, angry sometime, just, to lose the way to debate, or, the right thing to do. I don't know if I've been clear of what I'm
Yeah, you're clear. You're clear.
yeah,
You're clear.
so that's what they do. But in the meantime, you guys are doing a wonderful job, with this live as well. I will follow you again, so it will be my pleasure. Thank you very
Okay.
much for the space.
Thank you. Have a very nice
You heard
weekend.
You too.
Go ahead, Freedom.
See, here's the irony of it, Chip. They don't want you under Sharia law, right? They keep saying that, well, they want to do Sharia law, but they want us under Judaic law here in the United States, right? The judicial system is Judaic law. That is what we're under. And God forbid, the taxes we're paying here in the United States, besides what we're being ripped off every which way but loose. But they like to bring up that Sharia law because it's the simple way of fueling the minds of the people that don't understand what's really going on. They don't understand anything in life. They just follow blindly. They go to church, and whatever their preacher says, it's word. And that's not the case. Even as a Christian myself, he kept saying that the Christians had to pay higher and higher taxes. I can tell you that's a load of crap, Chip. And I want to tell you just how fair Islam is. The Islamic judge, my father some Muslim guy got into an argument because during the Muslim holiday, my father was smoking, right? And he's like, the guy's got on his case, what are you doing smoking? It's Ramadan, this and that. He's like, I'm a Christian. That's, I'm my prerogative. I'll do whatever I want. And so the guy takes him into the judge and calls the police. They take him in, and the judge goes, "What's going on here?" I said, "My father told him that I was smoking a cigarette." And this guy started telling me I can't be smoking a cigarette. So my father was turned loose, and then the judge turned to the other guy and he said, "It's not your business to tell him what to do. He's not a Muslim. He doesn't have to follow any of the laws that we follow. He didn't commit any crime. Smoking a cigarette is not committing a crime. He didn't steal anything from anybody. So that's pretty much what it is, but they like to use that term, you know, fear is their tool of, of division, and they like to use that very much so.
Well,
And
and just to point to not every Muslim nation who has a predominantly Muslim population operates, I mean, most don't, under Sharia.
no, they don't. They don't. A lot of them don't. But they like to put up that thing just to scare the easily conditioned. In other words, you have to pay a jizya. A lot of them don't even know what a jizya is. They say, "Oh, you have to pay a jizya tax." Well, hello, stupid! You're paying almost 80% in taxes. Once you're done paying all your bills, those are extra taxes that are being forced upon you. You know, so they just don't get it. Some people just won't get it. That's one point. And then when that guy was talking earlier, he
Real
was
quick,
saying,
real quick, because we have a few more people want to get in. Real quick.
okay, he was talking earlier about the terror groups and stuff like that. Uh, Al Qaeda. Of course, we know that we financed that one to help us fight in Afghanistan against the Russians. They were a proxy of the U.S., so we know that Al Qaeda was that. And me myself, I found IS Caliphate on the stock exchange back in 2012 as ISIS, and that was the ticker. So the company belonged to a guy named Walter Green. It was a BlackRock type of company that was tasked with guarding the Saudis, Qataris, and doing role playing. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you. I keep hearing this term that there's no such thing as Palestine, or there never was a Palestine. Do I have to play the video again of Golda Meir saying she was Palestinian and that she carried a Palestinian passport? I don't want to embarrass anybody. There was a region, not a nation state, a region called Palestine. There was a region called Transjordan, not a nation state called Jordan. The people who live in these regions identify ethnically and culturally with their region. Okay, so it doesn't negate the existence of a region with culture and towns and villages and municipalities and life. Okay, so let's just put aside to that nonsense. Most people call it Palestine still to this day because it is still Palestine with a partition of a Jewish ethno-state called Israel. Okay, that's the deal. Okay, I think we want to I can't read the name in Arabic, but he was
Hi,
very
I just want to ask a question real quick, if it's okay.
No, I mean, we have to go in order. So this person's next, and then it's going to be Muslim Zionist, and then you. I'm sorry, then Sal, then you.
Hi. So yes, when you were talking about Goldmeier, a lot of these people who are saying there's no Palestine and stuff like that, they're actually involving themselves in something that's called cognitive dissonance, where they believe they say something, but they believe in something else, and then that's why you will have them slip up sometime, which is called the Ferdunian slip. And psychology and how our brain works, you can't just go against facts sometimes. There will be slip ups. You will be eventually, confused, and because your subconscious knows one thing, and then your frontal your frontal, what is that called? Your frontal the frontal lobe is on a whole different level. So you're actually confusing your mind so much when you go into just spewing lies. When you spew lies like that, your whole person, your whole mind even goes against you. Very, very, very important to know that. So even if you try to go against the truth, you yourself will eventually slip up. And actually, anyways, I wanted to get on here and say that social media has been the number one tool for this whole movement for the truth. I love it, and I believe a lot of other political analysts have said this, is that social media has been working for the benefit of the truth, and I love that. And it doesn't have to be, when I say the truth, it doesn't have to be, Palestinians or who's right or who's wrong. The truth always comes out. It says it in the Bible. Whatever's in the dark comes to light every single time. Every single time. No matter what, the truth will always prevail. I love that social media has been a huge tool. I encourage everyone to educate themselves and not just, get their sources, get their information from sources that are, uncredible, unacademic. Go and actually, take the time to read and read some older books. Some of the new things that are coming out are not really honest. They're construed, they're biased, and they're not going to help you. At the end of the day, we're going to come out of this with a complete victory for the Palestinians. And at the end of the day, these Zionists, these people who have been, dishonest with themselves, they're going to realize that, they've been lied to. And I pray to you that on your deathbed, that you do not have this situation where you're like, I'm sorry for my actions. You know what? Where you are right now, you could make a decision right now. Get on the right side of history. Love yourself, love Earth, love your people, love your neighbor, and actually do the right thing. And so yeah, stay connected, stay supporting the truth, stay on the right side. So I just wanted to recap real quick. Social media is going to help you out a lot. You will regret the decisions you make if you are on the wrong side of history. You will, on your deathbed, I swear to God. I say this because I've seen multiple accounts of people on their deathbeds who are Israelis and who are Zionists on their deathbeds, and there's documentaries
Okay.
that prove this. Just one more thing.
No, yeah, I can't do one more thing. I apologize. I got to give somebody else a chance. I just want to show this to the audience really quickly. Let me turn my camera around. A couple people in the comments are saying things that there's no starvation. One second. That there's no starvation in Gaza. Okay, so I want to show you this picture. Look at that. Does that look like a well-fed human being? That's a 9-year-old in the north. There are hundreds of examples of little kids like this that are starving to death. So there is starvation. As far as the word open-air prison, I don't like that term either, to let you know, as far as Gaza. I like the term blockaded town that's enveloped by Israeli military control, because it is it's like a town, a group of towns that are walled in. And that's what, imagine if you're living in America or Israel and you can't leave. Like, you can drive around a little bit, but you can't leave. Imagine that for a second, what that must be like. It's got to suck, right? So call it what you want. It's still a shit sandwich. Okay, and then I want to show you a couple things just about Golda Meir in Palestine. I'm going to show you a map really quickly here. And again, this is called Google, if you haven't heard of it. Okay, this is a map of the area of 1947 of a region, not a state, a region called Palestine. And you'll notice there is no state or anything else for that matter called Israel. Okay, this is the map of 1947. Then you have Transjordan, Egypt, Syria, and Lebanon. We all know those names, right? So for all you naysayers out there, I'm going to do one more thing. And if you don't believe that, I want you to listen to your only female prime minister, Golda Meir, who says,
it was all this area before the First World War. When Britain got the mandate over Palestine, what was Palestine then? Palestine was then the area between the Mediterranean and the Iraqi border.
You say there's no such thing as
East
Palestine.
and West Bank, no. East and West Bank was Palestine. I'm a Palestinian. From 21 until 48, I carried a Palestinian passport.
All right, so I hope that puts to bed any of these bullshit comments about no Palestine, because the very prime minister who lived in there was a Palestinian Jew. Okay? So there you go. Enough of that garbage. Okay. I think the next person was going to be Sal, and then Muslim Zionist, and then Amin, and we got to finish up.
Hey,
Sal, did you want to go?
Goodbye. I just want to say goodbye.
Okay, thanks for
Have
being
a
here.
great live. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Come on back, please. Sal, are you there?
Now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Sal. Go
Do you
ahead.
hear me now?
Yes.
Just a point to the fact, and it was I was thinking on one point today. When I see so many videos of the Israeli people, how they behave in any age, any gender, you see little kids, you see men, women, elderly, everybody's like crazy. Now that they have showed their real colors, how they going to, how we, the world, are going to really how are we going to manage to deal with these people? Because now that we know who they really are, how we go, and that will be my main concern for the whole world. And I'm convinced, and I have very good friends that Jews that where I live, that pretty much most of them are agreeing with what Israel is doing, and I broke up with them, like let's say my friendship, and because it's not possible. How are we going to deal with them the way they are, the way they have shown the world that they don't have regret, they are sadistic, they are depraved. I don't know. Sorry, my English is kind of stuck
That's a
now.
good word. Depraved. That's a good word.
So it's really, really crazy. People acting crazy all the time. Girls, boys, women, everywhere. And it's like, how are we going to deal with them after all these past? The only thing I see, the only solution for the region is really going to be dismantle that, let's say, pet experiment, pet project of the Zionists, because any other way, there will be never peace in that region. So hopefully all this passes, but for me, it's going to be hard to deal with any of them, because they have shown who they are, what they are, even when for sure there are many good people. I've seen many good people, even Torah Jews, displaying good intentions, and they are fighting against the Israel as a nation and all that stuff. They are talking a lot about how it's against the very same Torah to the existence of a state, of a Jewish state. But anyway, these other guys, the Zionists, starting by Netanyahu and all their minions, evil minions, how are we going to deal with them? And the International Court of Justice and the UN look like they are not able to do anything. How to stop them? How to?
Yeah, let me jump into that for a second. First of all, from a linguistic standpoint, I think we have to be a little bit careful, because in fairness, we want to make a very clear delineation between people who embody or who have a certain mentality, who are willing to take their beliefs and impose them on others for their benefit, versus those people who happen to embrace Zionism for the sake of simply the establishment of a Jewish homeland. That's a very important distinction to make. So many people who are Zionists, who believe in the homeland, don't believe in expansionism or subjugation or occupation or all these other things. They just want safety, security, and a homeland. Fair enough. There are a whole nother cadre of people who either look the other way, don't care, or support the expansionist project that has accompanied the Zionist movement, not only for the territory that it initially acquired, which, by the way, the homeland did not necessarily have to be in that location. It ended up being there for other reasons, and as well as, long-term religious interpretations. But in the end, there were losers who got affected by that. And that's a fair thing to point out, right? People got affected. So the people that we have the most sort of problem with is not anything to do with Jewish. And somebody in the notes, Johnny Sorrentino in the comments said, boy, Sal sounds like he's talking about a, quote, final solution. Let me try to clarify what I think people envision. First of all, Israel, for lack of a better term, has figuratively shot itself in the foot with what it's chosen to do here. Most of the world, especially those outside the Western world, are outraged, like shocked, like beyond belief at what Israel has chosen to do. And let's face it, at best, you could argue there's been callous disregard for civilian life. That's the best argument you can make. And more likely, there's been many cases where it's been either indiscriminate or purposeful, or probably a good mix of both, mostly the latter. I have videos that just came in today of two different people walking up the beach in Gaza, and they get hit by tanks. And then a bulldozer comes in and tries to bury them. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we see on a day in, day out basis. War crime after war crime after war crime. Yes, what the age group did on the 7th involved war crimes. No doubt about it. We had somebody come up earlier today that spoke directly to that. I've seen those same videos. I have to call that out equally. But the response by Israel has been dramatically over the top, ridiculous amounts of war crimes. But to be clear, what has to change is the mindset and the political movement that surrounds that way of thinking and behaving has to be removed, not the people. Now, some of the people who are the more ardent supporters of it, the more maniacal, adherents, the ideologues who can't vary from that, they're going to have to physically go somewhere else, or some other solution is going to happen for those people. But I don't recommend anything as far as harming them personally, just removing their influence per se. But the remainder of people who live there are probably normal, everyday people like anybody else. They want to be safe, they want to be happy, they want to have a good life. So do Palestinians. So people can live together in a territory, name it what you want, call it what you want, but it needs to be democratic, it needs to be reasonable, it needs to be peaceful. The Zionist project, as well as intended as it may have been to have a safe homeland for Jewish people, has become an ethno-state and a huge source of trouble in the region. That's never simmered down and probably never will until the thing that I described changes. And therein lies the problem. The problem is that the country that is the strongest in the world, the country that I live in, is backing up the extensive overreach of the very movement in the form of the State of Israel that continues to do these horrible things. And until that stops, the chance of rectifying is lesser than greater. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is that what your point is that would be the utopic right now. I mean, it sounds like that because we have seen the indoctrination in the schools, how they teach even little kids how to use weapons and all that. So, and to hate Arabs, whatever it is, just they say Arabs in general. So it's going to be tough. I mean, the future for that region is going to be really tough because right after all these finishes, I mean, the genocide, I mean, I hope they can stop it right now.
Yeah.
How to deal with Israel, right? How to deal with them.
Well, the first step is the need for a ceasefire, which of course the U.S. could easily make that happen if with one phone call. And all they have to say is, if you don't stop killing people, no more money, no more military, no more political cover, no more anything. And then it would stop. But that's not what they're doing. They're condemning it publicly and putting all the blame on one leader while not changing the policy or the behavior of the entire entity. And therein lies the problem. However, I think it's fair. If I were from Israel, I would want to get rid of the problem that caused me my security breach on the 7th. I think that's not unreasonable, but the broader context will continue to drive similar attacks in the future. That's irrefutable. Even if Israel came in today and snapped their fingers and all the militants underground were gone, there's still going to be violent resistance because the elements that preceded the violent resistance persist. That's the problem. There's one more guest that just came in named Poof Boom something. How you doing?
It's Professor, but
Oh, I'm sorry, my eyesight is not so good, Professor.
that's okay. Thank you very much for having me. I very much appreciate your thoughtful comments about the current conflict and the state of Israel and the state of or the plight of the Palestinians. Now, admittedly, I am a Zionist, a Jew, and an American. Now, I happen to be one of the believers, as many people, rational people, believe that in a two-state solution. You can't simply subjugate the Palestinian people forever and don't expect a reaction. But there is a cycle of distrust between the Israelis on the one side and the Palestinians on the other side. And it's just one person punches one person in the face and then there's a reaction. And it's just a cycle. And it's an unequal, unbalanced cycle because Israel is a stronger force in the region. But there should be a two-state solution. It's very unfortunate that secular Jews like myself who believe in a two-state solution, that has been derailed. There should be a two-state solution. The settlers in the West Bank should be restrained or brought back within the borders of Israel. The Palestinians should have their state. Israel should live in peace, in harmony, and they both should live with respect and dignity. Now, how does that happen? Well, probably with international peacekeepers coming in. But when you have a fundamental belief on one side that the other side should not exist, that is where you have a fundamental disconnect. Now, as regretful it is for the Palestinian side, Israel is not going to go anywhere. It is not going to fall off the map. The Israelis are not going to leave and go back to the diaspora. It's simply not going to happen. And as much as the Palestinian cause think that is going to happen, it isn't. Israel is a recognized nation state and a democracy in the region, and it enjoys the backing of the Western world. So, the thought of armed revolt, revolution, freedom fighting only causes much more harm to the Palestinian cause, and it will only cause more bloodshed.
Can I just make a couple of points real quickly? I want to make sure.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. So have you by any chance read the revised 2017 charter? And before I even say that, obviously we know that the leadership of the entirety of the Palestinian people is divided, right? We know that there's a PA in the West Bank and there's the H group in the Strip. So there's not even a unified government, but just among the H group alone, we know that there's a more conciliatory tone by the leadership in the West Bank because of how they've divided up territory in terms of the A, B, and C management structure. And it's not perfect, but it's a wholesale better in terms of conflict than it is in Gaza. No rocket fire, etc. But one of the key provisions, I don't know if you know this or not, I didn't know this until I started researching it. The H group put out a new charter in 2017 that replaced its 1988 charter, in which it did say they wanted to completely remove all of the Jewish people from the territory, which I think is horrific, obviously. They removed that language, thankfully. Now, some say that was political. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. They did replace some of their language. Now, you said a second ago that you can't have a peace partner in peace who wants the entire entity gone. Their language is very specific with regards to that. So they said clearly that while they don't think it's reasonable to recognize the state because of the transgressions they perceive having happened. And at the same time, they say, but however, for national reconciliation purposes, meaning we're willing to work with our neighbors from the previous political split to come up with a solution for everyone, that I'll read it to you. Without compromising its rejection of the Zionist entity and without relinquishing any Palestinian rights, H Group considers the establishment of a fully sovereign and independent Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital, or shared, along the lines of the 4th of June 1967 borders, with the return of refugees and the displaced to their homes from which they were expelled, to be a formula of national consensus. That's a lot different than we want to get rid of Israel and we won't take anything except for that.
But yeah, I would concur that it's a move in the right direction, but there has to be an acknowledgement that we can't unring the bell or put Humpty Dumpty back together again. The concept of returning to former ancestral homes in Israel, regardless of how they were taken, whether there was an evacuation, whether they fled, whatever the case may be, it's a non-starter. The Israelis are simply not going to open up their borders to the ancestry of the Palestinians who fled or were ejected or whatever it was, and allow themselves to become minorities in their own country. It's a non-starter. So if the Palestinians want a homeland, which they should have, it will be in the West Bank and in Gaza, but it certainly will not be within the borders of the state of Israel. And
Now, you
that
mentioned
is exactly why
You mentioned the settlements. This is a really key point. You mentioned that Israel, in an ideal world, should remove the settlers, but there's 700,000 plus Israeli citizens now who live in the settlements. And Israel has made the decision in the past, much to the chagrin of most outside parties, including the U.S., to increase the pace of expansion of settlements. And they've taken it to an extent now where it seems politically and geographically impractical, if not impossible, to dismantle them and remove the population. It would be very politically difficult, as it was in 2005 in Gaza. So the question comes down to, because of those choices that Israel made, which a lot point to and say, hey, there never has been an intent for a two-state solution because of that behavior, and it's going to be very difficult from a territorial integrity standpoint to enact such a thing, that inevitably the only solution then is going to be have everybody incorporated under one single democratic system as a cohesive state. Now, Israel claims that it, quote, conquered the territory and won it in the Six-Day War in 1967, but it does not extend any legal rights to those in the territory it claims it now owns. So
I
therefore,
concur. I concur with
clearly
you. I am
establish
anti.
borders. So it does mean a pseudo-apartheid system, whether you want to look at it from in or out. And the people who live there don't have the ability to live much of a life under Israeli occupation and control, or nothing near what Jewish residents get to experience, that's for sure. So barring the right of return inside of Israel, how does there a solution with, let's say, 75 or 80% of the land that's really arable and beneficial settled by Israelis and more happening every day, and the demolition of Palestinian homes and all the other brutality that accompanies that occupation? How do you then create a political solution in light of both of those inabilities?
I concur with your statement that the settlements are, in my opinion, a impediment to peace and an impediment to a two-state solution. And I am a ardent Zionist, an ardent Jew, an ardent American, and I certainly concur with your statements that the existence of settlements is anathema to the creation of a two-state solution. And the problem is that the more settlers go out there, the more the IDF has to go out there to protect them, and a greater need to keep the Palestinian populace under their thumb. It is not a recipe for a two-state solution. I concur with that, and that's why I'm anti-settlement.
That's a good point. I think in the end, we're going to have to figure out, and this is one of the big things. I've been watching this since 1989. Now, you sound like you're someone who's not too far from my age. I'm 57. So I don't want to speak for you, but
I'm 62.
Yeah, so we sound like we're in the same neighborhood. So I just happened to learn about this during a political science course way back in the day when I was getting ready to graduate. I just had no clue, obviously, like most Americans. And I think a lot of people have recently kind of had their eyes open to this thing, just kind of under most people's radar. And the difference between this portion of the ongoing conflict from others, in my view, is the way that information has flowed. And if, like it or hate it or want to deny it or not, Israel has had a very proactive way of managing the flow of information and the way it gets phrased, et cetera, through the American and Western media for many decades, including within its borders. And so this time is different. This time there's some other avenues where information can be disseminated, and people that would never have seen some of this in the old method are seeing it now. And that has shifted the mindset of other people more than anything I've ever witnessed. First of all, there are more people aware of it because it's a big political, news event. But secondarily, the nature of the Israeli actions, which it's always done in a very similar fashion in terms of disproportionate response and its version of choosing to do things. I'll leave it at that. That's the nicest way to put it. But people are seeing it for what it is, not for what they're being told in the Western press, not for what people are saying or trying to create a narrative. They're seeing pictures of buildings blown up, little children, women, all the devastation. And it seems, whether right or wrong, whether it's justifiable or not, based on human shields and all the other talking points, it seems to the average person who has no necessarily affiliation with either side that it's way beyond over the top, that it's egregious at best, probably a war crime. Not that some of the events of 10/7 weren't, but the disproportionality of those war crimes are such that people are literally aghast. And I believe, even if I was an ardent supporter and supporter of Israel, that I would be like, hey, why are we doing this to this extent? We are making ourselves into pariahs on the world stage. And I believe that that's the biggest shift in this, is that any reputation that Israel had before this conflict began, and maybe that was part of the calculation on the other side, even though it was silly in the harm that would follow to its people, the dynamic in terms of world perception has changed dramatically towards Israel. And that's a big deal.
Well, I would certainly. I'm not going to go as far as you perhaps have gone vis-a-vis the military response to October 7th. Nonetheless, the killing of people, the being inhumane to other people is not a Jewish way. It just isn't. It's not really within our mantra or
I agree.
mindset.
I agree. And I don't think the Zionists that are choosing the more ardent Zionists have anything to do with the Jewish faith. I really don't.
Well, we just seem to be, the political narrative within Israel is unfortunately being hijacked to a certain extent by the ultra Orthodox, but and it's the ultra Orthodox who are settling in the West Bank. It's not secular Jews, secular Israelis. All the secular Israelis want to do is they want to live in their beautiful homes in Tel Aviv and elsewhere in Haifa and live a good life because they've built a good life.
But to be
That's all
fair,
they want.
but there are Jews from the United States and around the world that are being heavily recruited and incentivized to move into settlements in the occupied territories to provide more residents and further their expansion.
But who are, with all due respect, who are they?
They're people from Long Island, New
I
York.
agree, but who they are not secular.
Yeah, mindset wise, they are more extremist than the average Jewish person is by far.
They are the ultra Orthodox who believe that the West Bank is part of Judea and Samaria and is biblically part of Israel. Now we all know that is not politically expedient, nor is it acknowledged by the international community. Where I draw the line personally is where people call for the destruction and dismantling of the state of Israel and the right of return. That is where I unfortunately say that is a deal breaker. You should have your lands. You should have Gaza, the West Bank. You should live in peace and harmony and with dignity. And as long as you have security and Israel has security, that'll be fine. A la what we have perhaps between North Korea and South Korea. They certainly don't like each other, but they have a demilitarized zone and it's a fortified boundary.
Yes.
But the reality here is, yes, the people who are being recruited are not moderate people in the center. They are far right.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think the thing is, I think what you say is extremely practical and reasonable, which I commend you for taking that position. And I agree with you about the right of return. It's impractical. I agree with you on everything you said. But to come back to the challenges of the logistics and the territorial constraints, I think that Israel has made its bed in terms of precluding that from happening, unfortunately. And Netanyahu has stated publicly that one of the best ways, or several, are to support and fuel the division politically between the PA and Hamas. Unfortunately, that's happened. And things have gone where they've gone. And there's been a policy from administration to administration to administration to administration. And it's all been pretty much the same at different speeds and paces, but pretty much the same progression. And it's steadily taking more and more, or occupying and settling more and more land. And that's much to the chagrin of people like you and me who want to see a legitimate, peaceful settlement. It's made that version of it, I think, impractical. And it's not willing to accept a one-state solution because of the political dynamics of shifting from an ethno-state of Jewish to a non-ethno state, which is unacceptable because that was its purpose. So it leaves us in this weird predicament. And the question is what to do next. Now, given that predicament, one could argue that attacking is the worst thing to do because it just inflames tensions and creates a back and forth. I could understand that argument. I think the one thing that has changed, like I said before, is that for whatever reason, whether it was intended or not, so many more people now know about this. And I do think eventually enough pressure is going to be brought to bear on the United States and Israel. It may not work initially, but I think over long periods of time, this is going to lead to some shift of some type because people are not willing to accept, as the previous person said, for this type of behavior and this type of entity to persist in its current form politically. Not the people being harmed, but the entity is going to have to shift in some way, shape, or form for the world to accept it.
Well, first of all, and I have wanted, and obviously I don't have an ability, but I have wanted Netanyahu to exit stage right for a long period of time. I think he should have his service to the country is counterproductive at this point, in my opinion. But be that as it may, his day will come, and hopefully there'll be a more moderate government in place who will see a way clear to be more of a balanced actor.
One of the challenges with that is that, like I said, the policies have continued from administration to administration, regardless of far right, far left, central. And the other thing is, and most people either don't know this or look the other way, but the brutality that is a part of the occupation, and many just don't believe this, but I'll tell you, having seen it firsthand, and it's been going on long before the occupation, but the brutality that Israel uses, that's far and beyond the net that's necessary to secure its security. That's
I don't
where
know.
I think people from the outside in look at this.
I don't know. Look, two wrongs don't make a right. There is enough fault and blame to go around, and it is a cycle of violence and abhorrent behavior that should end. How it ends, I don't know. But knowing the Jewish mindset and the Zionist mindset, all they really want to do is be left alone and in peace to live their manifest destiny without the veil of terrorism and on their doorstep.
Well, somebody missed that memo then, because if that's the predominant mindset, it's not what the behavior indicates by the government and by the nation state. So there's a difference between the American population that you and I are a part of and the American governing apparatus, both the permanent establishment and the administrations that come and go into. But the behavior by the government at the federal level is very consistent in a lot of different areas, from an economic and foreign policy. And the same thing in Israel, regardless of what the internal population might feel, and unfortunately many, because of the anger that has stemmed from 10/7, tend to support more than not what we're seeing inside of Gaza, because a lot of people are sort of in this mode of, arrogant indifference to consequences. And I think that's short-sighted. I think one being measured when one has power is the best way forward, not to use it liberally and indiscriminately without consequence, or what someone deems to be, like the little kid at the playground who's kicking his friends in the shins because the big guy around the corner has his back. But that may not always be the case. And I think that the guy who's kicking people in the shins with a grin on his face because he thinks it doesn't matter, that day when the guy goes somewhere else is a bad day for that kid kicking people in the shins. And I don't want to see that happen to the kid. I don't want the kid to be doing it in the first place.
Well, I concur with that. Unfortunately, the H group is a cunning foe, and they are playing chess, and the state of Israel is playing chess, and unfortunately the Gazans who are caught in the crossfires are paying the bills. But the H group are cunning, vicious, sneaky foes, and they're relying on the Israelis' temperament not to mete out the military result that they're looking for, and unfortunately, the Gazans are paying the price. But I
Let's do
also
Let's
go ahead.
just real quick. Let's do this because we're way past our time. First, I want to thank you for being here and sharing your views. We can continue. I'm going to finish with one thought. I want to give you your last thought. The one thing I disagree, the argument that you mentioned towards the end, I disagree with, is that people that are running the show in Israel just want to, quote, be left alone and not have to deal with terror. I think people respect the fact that a group of people want to be free from harm from a security standpoint. And if that's all Israel did, then any attacks that would come from that would be justifiably condemnable within that broader context. But that's not what their behavior indicates. What their behavior indicates over many decades is increasing the territory into which it expands. That's not being left alone and being free of T words. That's expanding and sticking the finger in the historical wound that many feel they have, and then twisting a knife. It's just not necessary. And you've already acknowledged the fact that you don't support that. Fair enough. But the reason why there is an H group is because many in the territories were unsatisfied with the progression of the political process to the goal that you and I have been discussing. And there was a split between how to proceed. And the one group thought a more militant approach was better. The other one thought a more conciliatory approach is better. We've seen in the past that when conciliatory approaches are taken, it leads to more settlements. It leads to further brutality. It leads to further humiliation and subjugation under the hard hand of the Israeli more powerful state. That's the problem that people have. I'm all for Israel having a safe place to be, for Jews to have a safe homeland, for all of the above. And in order for that to occur, something's going to have to give. And right now, the only people that have been giving are the Palestinians, who've been further pushed off the land they were already made into refugees on. And if the tables were turned right now, and I talk about this in my videos, you may not have seen them, but if the tables were to be turned and you flip the script, and it were Jewish refugees that had been initially dispossessed from their land, whether they left voluntarily because somebody told them to come back in a week, or whether they were forced off or fled because the adjacent village got massacred. And then subsequent to that, the very things that had happened despite their resistance, everybody in the world would be crying Holocaust Part 2 because of having 25 or 30,000 Jewish people had died through whatever justification by a response to a horrific attack by Jewish militants. So if you put the shoe on the other foot, it's pretty clear to see where one would stand. So that's how I look at this, and I try to be fair, but I don't think there's an easy solution to be realistic. I think the only thing that will shift the tide of this is removing the United States in its current form and its power structure in supporting Israelis pretty much without question. And that in terms of money and military might and military equipment and military and political cover, as they're doing at the UN. So I don't see that changing anytime soon, barring either major conflict or major revolution, both of which I don't think are likely. So I think it's going to persist for some time. But I think in the long run, as I said earlier, when you choose to take your asymmetric power and cram it down the throat of an adversary in a way that the Israelis have chosen to do, it angers people. Not just those who are under the end of it, but others who stand on the side and observe it. Not everybody, but most people. So let's leave it at that for tonight.
I concur. I thank you very much for your time, and I very much appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for come on back too. I'd love to have you back. Thanks for being here. Okay, Sal, did you want to say one last thing before we close down? Sal, you there or no? It's okay if you're not. Yeah, did you want to say one last thing before we close
Yeah,
down?
very fast. Yes, I'm here. Yeah,
Okay.
totally. I'm partially agree with many of the things I've heard. Just my concern that, I mean, obviously it's going to be tough for everybody. And one of the solutions that you mentioned that I think is the most achievable at some point in the future, which is to have one state with Jewish Palestinian living. Jewish Palestinian living in one state, because for the survival of Israel right now is going to be tough. And as you said, if United States continue backing them up, which is most likely what is going to happen for a while. If they don't, I'm pretty sure that Israel would disappear like very fast, because Arabs would go just take the land back and whatever. So I don't know. It's tough for everybody. Just what is inconceivable is to see the atrocities every day, and every day is even worse. It's the best documented genocide in the whole history. and even like that,
Yeah.
it seems like nobody stopped them. I mean, or are able to stop them, and that's it. I mean, everybody, all the world is concerned as me, and everybody's crying with Palestinian people. And if you're not, it's because I don't know where is your humanity, but it's really tough to watch those images every day.
It is very tough. Thanks again for being here, Sal. I appreciate you. Have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, interesting conversation. So, there's a lot of different angles to look at it from, and it can go on and on and on and on. I think we got a few things hammered down, but again, there are a lot of things that can't be changed easily, and therefore the situation can't be changed easily. And that's unfortunate, but that's where it is. So we might see more and more of the same, although this is certainly a turning point as far as awareness. That's the interesting variable. So we'll see where it takes us. I do want to thank everybody for being here. I wanted to let you know this is being recorded, and I upload all of these live sessions to my YouTube and my Rumble channels, usually within a few hours, sometimes by the next day. So this will be on tonight. If you missed any of the conversation, it was really good tonight. By all means, go check it out. You can find access to my my YouTube and my Rumble pages by going into my profile, and you'll see a link that says Linktree Chip Barnes. If you click on that, it'll take you to a list, self-explanatory. If you're outside the United States, that clickable link, unfortunately does not appear. So you have to type into your web browser some text that I've put into my profile. It gets you to the same place. You just have to type it in. Anyway, so that's there. In addition, there's some links to some groups that I created on Telegram for people to share dialogue. And there's also some places near the bottom, if you are able to and so inclined, if you like the way I work, if you want to support the work that I do. I probably do about 25 or 30 hours a week of this. And TikTok pays us about $3 every 4 hours. So we don't make a lot of money from TikTok. So if you want to help out, I would appreciate it. There's several donation links. You'll see it there. But that's it for tonight, everybody. I'll be on again Saturday from 12 p.m. Eastern until about 4 p.m. and sometimes before then if I have time. So I appreciate you being here, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.